being part of organizations. So that means that we have wanted to just act as atomized entities that are pushing for change. But the reality is that if we have mobilized to push for power and power falls, it won't just remain like that patiently till the rest of us now decide, okay, now that Ruto has gone, and the entirety of the comprador class of Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta and all of those funny kingpins that Ruto is trying to get to support him in hopes that Kenyans will cooperate, all of these people, they won't stop working, and as soon as we are able to push for a successful revolution, they and their allies will begin to push for a counter-revolution. So rather than wasting time and saying that we'll cross that bridge when we get there, why don't we decide, right now? And we don't have to have, let's say, clear-cut decisions on this is how this is supposed to work. This is how this is supposed to work. Part of what the second episode on A Certain Amount of Madness, which is the podcast that whose episode had two guests, Lewis Maganga, the chairperson of the RSL, and Vincent Bevins, the author of the book If We Ban. What that episode really was trying to emphasize is that all of this apprehension of, we can't trust this person or we can't trust this organization, we can't be having it in our bedrooms. We can't be having it in our rooms or in our spaces. We have to have it within now organizations that we've decided, okay, I agree with the philosophies of this particular organization or this particular organization, and then joining that and then asking, what alliances is this organization willing to build? Which leaders are these organizations willing to put forth, and what type of approach or perspective does this organization have towards the protest? And I think it's something that's very important to consider, because if we do not do that and we push on without thinking about any of these things, we might be successful in pushing Ruto out of power, and that's very much a possibility. I think I think the kind of momentum that we've built up this year, going into next year, we might be very successful at doing that. But then, and this has been the question that they've been trying to get us with, even on the media and whatnot, what next, That's what they've been trying to get us with. What next? What happens next? And then the only answer we have is we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And it's fine, we can do that, but what do we have? At least a template? Do we have like a structure, or do we have structures that we can trust? I am the General Secretary of the Revolutionary Youth League of the Communist Party Marxist Kenya, and that is an organization that grounds itself in Marxist-Leninist ideologies. And we believe, of course, that the solution is very simple. We need to have an anti-imperialist approach to the formation of a new government, and an anti-capitalist approach to the formation of a new government. Anti-imperialist being, and I will explicitly call these entities out, an anti-imperialist approach against the United States of America. And I will not be afraid of naming that country for the demonic entity that it is. We need to have an anti-imperialist approach against the European Union and against NATO. Remember, Kenya has just been designated a non-NATO ally formally, and it is the fourth country to have this status on the African continent, after Egypt, after Morocco, and after Tunisia. That means any military exercises that the United States will want to carry out next year on the African continent through its branches of US AFRICOM, Kenya will be there. And that means we have to actually reckon we actually have to reckon with what does it mean to be anti-imperialist. We have to push back against this. And what does it mean to be anti-capitalist? We know full well that the greed of the politicians that we have right now is what is causing a lot of this mess. Politicians deciding they can privatize our airports, they can privatize our hospitals, they can privatize our education system. So what is our philosophy towards the current economic system, right? So what is our foreign relations perspective and what is our domestic perspective? Because if we do not have a foreign relations perspective that we can all agree on, then all of these foreign backers are going to support a counter-revolution. They are going to support a Matiang'i or, I'm not assuming okay, sorry about that. They're going to support a perspective candidates that they hope will be able to align with their worldview. Canadian lobbying groups, Israeli lobbying groups are waiting to see which presidential candidate that they can back. So what can we do to prevent this? And I think I'll just stop there, but I'll just end with this. with a small quote from the book Kenya's War of Independence by Shiraz Durrani, and it says that the colonial government fully supported Kenyatta moderate wings as a way of stopping the radicals who in effect were carrying on the revolutionary agenda of Mau Mau. While the elimination of the radical wing was supposedly done by the Kenyatta moderates, the power behind their actions was the colonial government, which cleverly dispatched a so-called progressive to be a governor of Kenya, to oversee the transition of the colony to a Western neo-colony under the guise of independence. The last governor of Kenya, Malcolm MacDonald, self-proclaimed moderate socialist, explains the thinking of the colonial government regarding the moderate radical contradiction in Kenya in response to the question. I remember you saying earlier that it was wise for the British government to support Kenyatta because he was a moderate. I thought that if the moderates came into power in independent Kenya, they would not only be moderate in their national policies, in economic and social political affairs, but on the side of moderation in international affairs, and for example, not to go communist and not to come under the influence of any other communist, anti-British, anti-Western power. So we have to think about what organizations can we join that are having these kinds of discussion. I am part of the Communist Party Marxist Kenya. Lewis Maganga is part of the Revolutionary Socialist League. I would, of course, expect all of you to be interested in having political discussions under organizations that are being facilitated by Senator Okiya Omtatah and the NRA. So if it is possible for you to have these kinds of discussions, interrogate what kind of a leader is Okiya Omtatah through the organizations that are available for you to access him, right? These kinds of questions will help us have clarity so that if we move into next year, we'll be able to do so, knowing full well what actually happens when we cross that bridge. Yeah, I'll end it there.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kiritu. And Kiritu, I think you have followed up by giving more color to what the senator had said. The struggle that we are facing, the primary struggle that we are facing as Kenyans, is that we were never fully liberated. The exit of the colonialists, the white faces from Kenya, did not mean that we now had the liberty to run our country according to our own wishes. So we have never had democracy in Kenya. That is why the ambassador of Kenya, the US ambassador to Kenya, has outsized influence on the policies that are passed in Kenya. That is why the IMF and the World Bank basically write a lot of our economic and finance policies. We remain very much, as Kiritu has said, a neo-colony, but that has even been escalated in the last few years, where we are now a non-NATO ally, which basically means that we are just another state of the United States without any of the benefits of the United States. And so in this context, who are the kind of leaders who are able to understand, articulate, and to embody the fight that young Kenyans are fighting against imperialism, so that we can be free, to set the agenda on our education system. We can be free to set the agenda on our food sovereignty. We can be free to have a healthcare system that is fashioned according to the needs of Kenyans. And on that note, I will now hand over to Liz Maganga, who will also make a pitch about why it is important for young people to start either forming or joining organizations, so that we can now have a collective way of pushing against the forces that are working against us. Maganga?
Thank you very much, Comrade Mamka, for that. Thank you very much, Senator Omtatah, for, of course, agreeing to host us in this very important conversation today. Thank you very much, Comrade Kiritu, for that contribution as well. Very informative, very comprehensive. Thank you so much, Comrade Muthiora, for the introductory remarks as well. So, my name is Maganga, and as comrades have said, I belong to the Revolutionary Socialist League, which is a revolutionary organization, and which, of course, is one of the many organizations that took part in the protests and continues to take part in organizing as we continue to work towards the liberated Kenya that we all want and that we all deserve to live in. So I will briefly pick up from where the previous speakers have left as regards analyzing what these protests, what the situation in Kenya was all about. I will briefly talk about the slogans that the young people had in the streets in the course of the protests, that we are leaderless, that we are tribeless, that we are partyless, and what exactly was meant by that. I'll also briefly give examples of countries in which the process that took place in our country also took place, and we shall see what happened in those countries, and we shall have a comparison and see, of course, what the limits of leaderlessness means and what happened when the people took to the streets. Did the aspirations that the people have materialize, or did the status quo regroup and find itself at the helm of power at the end of the entire process? So briefly, that's what I will talk about today, and I'm very glad to have this opportunity. Thank you very much, comrades. So first of all, when we talk about our protests, when we look at the reasons why Kenyans took to the streets in June, July, and August, majorly, what was the primary reason behind it? Why did we take to the streets? Of course, the immediate trigger was the rejection of the finance bill, which of course was going to have some very, very negative implications in our lives. But when we see, when we look at this deeper, we see that the rejection of the finance bill was only a culmination of the many issues that had been taking place in our society prior. Why were people going to the streets? Why were people saying no to the finance bill in the first place? Because they perceived the finance bill as something that was going to make their lives even worse than it already was. In what sense? We see that the cost of living was already going up. The finance bill of 2023 last year increased the prices of food and basic commodities by increasing taxes on those goods and basic commodities. The finance bill for this year was going to increase this cost even further. We see that there's a dysfunctioning of our healthcare system, there's a dysfunctioning of our education system. Before the protests took place, remember, there was flooding throughout the rains in April and May, and many, many Kenyans lost their lives. What did the government do in response? The government decided to evict forcefully the people who are living close to the riparian areas without offering them any compensation, without offering them any way forward. Where are you going after you've been evicted? So the rejection of the finance bill was a culmination of all this frustration. So Kenyans are saying, look, we have experienced a lowering of our standards of living, a further lowering of our standards of living. We are experiencing an alienation from the very basics of human dignity. And this bill is here to make things even worse for us. So, of course, now that's why the people are taking to the streets. So why the slogan leaderlessness, tribelessness, and partylessness? When you look critically, you'll see that when Kenyans say we are leaderless, they're not explicitly saying that they reject leadership. On the contrary, in fact, what the people are saying is that the present leadership that is in place has failed us. It is because of the present leadership that we are taking to the streets in the first place. So when we say we are leaderless, it is because we are saying the present system in which leaders are alienated from the people, in which leaders make decisions without consulting the people, in which leaders only act on their own interests and on the interests of their cronies and their families, and on the interests of their Western, masters who fund them, and whichever corporate entities which lobby them. We are rejecting that kind of system. So we want a situation in which all the people get to have a say in the governance of the country. All the people get to say exactly what their destiny should be. So when people say we are leaderless, it is exactly that. In addition to that, the people have seen previously that whenever there is a public campaign about anything and leaders emerge, they've seen leaders take advantage of the moment to cut deals for themselves. And this has happened previously. We can have a look at last year when protests took place, of course, not to the broad extent that it did in this year, but protests also took place last year. And what happened as a result? We saw a few elite politicians take advantage of the situation to cut deals for themselves with the government, so that they can get, seats in government, etc. So we see a rejection of a leadership, a rejection or rather the propagation of the slogan that we are leaderless as not a rejection of leadership, but a rejection of the compromise that has historically accompanied such leaders who've emerged on the backs of popular campaigns, and a rejection of leaders who do not take into account what the needs, what the aspirations of the people are. When people say we are tribeless, what does that mean? Of course, people come from different ethnic backgrounds. It's a fact. But when we say we are tribeless, what that means is we are rejecting the present situation in which tribe has been used by the ruling elite to divide the people in order to control them. We're rejecting a situation in which people are, reminded, or, people are falsely informed that, other, people coming from other ethnic communities should be shunned, should be avoided, should not be voted for, etc., for negative, for negative outcomes, really, for a situation in which ethnic barons get to, rule and to dominate and to divide the people further. And we've seen this happen throughout the history of this country, going back not only since the years of independence, but since the colonial period. And it's important that Kenyans remember where ethnic mobilization in politics began. It did not begin in the post-independent era of Kenya. It actually has its roots in the colonial period. It is the British colonialists who deliberately saw it fit to divide the people and to mobilize people on the basis of negative ethnicity in order to further divide them and to prevent them from having a common front against the status quo. When you look at the early political associations that were formed during the colonial period, for example, Kikuyu Central Association, Yanka Virondo Association, Taita Hills Association, Ukambani, etc. We see that they were, based on tribes. But if you look historically, you'd see that in fact, the first association was East African Association, and the intention was to mobilize not only the people in Kenya, but the people in the whole East Africa region generally, because of course Uganda and Tanzania were also colonies of the British at that time. But what did the British colonial government do as a result? It deliberately insisted that political associations must be tribal. And the intention was clear. Divide the people, make them feel like they have nothing in common so that it becomes easy to control them. And since the Kenyan state right now is a neo-colonial state, since Kenya has not truly achieved independence, we see that the same elite that was in power during the colonial period is still in power today. Of course, they have new puppets that they use to control us now. But because of this, they see it fit to continue using ethnic mobilization to continue controlling the people and to continue holding the system in place. So it's important that Kenyans understand where the roots of ethnic mobilization in politics began and what its interests are. Its interests, of course, are to maintain the status quo, to keep the people divided so that they don't see who their true enemy is. So when Kenyans took to the streets to say that we are tribeless, it was precisely against the ethnic mobilization that has continuously been used by the ethnic barons to maintain control of the country and over our resources. When people say we are partyless, again, it is a rejection of the present parties of the status quo, which have continuously betrayed the people and which really do not serve our interests, but have always served the interests of individuals, of their barons, of their families, and of course, the masters that they serve. So this basically serves as an analysis of the slogans that have been, at the protests. So we see, therefore, that it is important to understand what the people's aims and aspirations are, and it's important to see that the people, aim at having a situation in which the aspirations, are fulfilled at the end of the protests or at the end of any campaign that they're doing, and that such slogans emerge as a means to achieve these aspirations and as a means to deal with anything that they feel, is going to curtail the fulfillment of these aspirations. What are some of the examples of countries in Africa where similar protests took place, similar campaigns took place? We see, of course, famously the Arab Spring, which began in Tunisia, and spread to Libya, Egypt. We see what happened in Burkina Faso in 2014, where the dictatorship of Blaise Compaoré was ended after the people rose up and fought against that corrupt regime in 2014. We've seen in Sudan the people rising up and ousting the dictatorship of Omar al-Bashir. In all these examples, in all these countries, what was the outcome of the protests? What was the outcome of the campaigns that took place? We see that sadly, in many of these countries, the same corrupt individuals who were members of the status quo, who were members of the ruling elite in that government that has been ousted, coming back. We've seen them coming back and regrouping and taking control of the country, after the campaigns or the protests have died down. We see this in Egypt. We've seen this in Sudan, where the generals who were members of the ruling elite during Bashir's time coming into power after, the people ousted Bashir. In Burkina Faso, we saw, members of the civil society, not really the people who were in the streets, but members of the civil society getting groomed by the French and taking power. It's good that Burkina Faso now has a progressive regime, but right after the protests in 2014, it is basically the French who mobilized and put in power, an elite which really was not the one that fought in the streets for change. So what do we learn from these examples? What we learn is that whenever there is no clear structure, whenever there's no clear organization that provides leadership, provides guidance, articulates effectively and openly the demands that the people have, it becomes difficult to achieve the aspirations that the people have when they're conducting their campaigns. Whenever we are not really organized, then the most organized group ends up taking power. And of course, they do this on the backs of the millions of people who've campaigned for change. Comrades have mentioned, of course, the fact that there's never really a power vacuum at any point in time, which is true. Because we see that only the most organized forces end up in control of the country, of the system, whenever such a chance offers itself. So what we learn, therefore, is that the people must be organized at any given point in time. Because if you're not organized, then our uprising or our revolution gets usurped. And often it is the same people who've been part of the status quo who are more organized, and therefore they end up seizing the moment and taking advantage of our uprising and seizing control of the country. And of course, what that means is that what we fought for does not really get, really get realized in this new system or in this new regime, in this new reality that has now, come into effect or come into force. So therefore, going forward, it's important for us to be organized. If you're not a member of any organization, I would urge you to join an organization. I'm a member of Revolutionary Socialist League. I would welcome people to join the Revolutionary Socialist League. They're members of Communist Party Marxist. Senator Okiya is a member of NRA. So there are organizations which have been part of the process to see a liberated Kenya. And it's important for people to join or to affiliate themselves with organized forces, because it is only when we get organized that we become truly able to effect change.
Comrade Maganga, just before you wrap up, I know that RSL did a lot of research and produced what you've been presenting. I just wanted you to go back and confirm if I heard right, that you said what we saw in the streets in June during the Gen Z uprising was a rejection of the status quo political formations and structures. Did I get it right, Maganga?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I know the juice is a lot, and we will have you to come give us some more. Now, let's go to Mamka so she can invite the next speaker, and then you'll bring us the rest of the report from this research that you did with RSL and that you've been engaging the public with. So just hang on as Mamka invites the next speaker.
Great. Thank you so much, Maganga. That was very compelling. And thank you so much to Mudhira as well. So now we're going to hear from Fabish, who's going to expand more on the need for organization moving forward. Fabish.
Thank you for hosting this space, Senator Okiya Omtatah, Muthiora, and everyone who have participated here today. And indeed, this is a very critical moment, and this topic is one of a very important topic. I think I want to agree with every sentiment from the research and even from the personal opinions that yes, in everything that you intend to do, even in our personal life, you have to always be organized. You have to know how you do things, and you have to have your clarity. You have to have, be objective and know exactly what the results you expect. So we cannot just, operate freely without having any plan. So yes, I want to agree also that yes, we need to have different formation, different organization. Then we bring the ideologies together. We sit at the table and we agree on what we intend to achieve and how do we do it. But I've been having concern about when it comes to revolution, because we have two ways of revolution. Of course, we can revolt by constitutional means, of which we do so by making sure that we rally ourselves, armed ourselves with the votes, and make sure that we vote this regime out. That is one way. And the other way is by way of going to the street and calling for mass action until we remove the regime. So now it left for us to see which suits are us at the moment and in our settings. To say that we are leaderless, I don't think that we have any vacuum of leaders in our country. When Senator came, and declared that, yes, he's in the forefront of the movement, it inspired a lot of hope. And we have seen also other people emerging and showing us that they can be leaders in, different levels of leadership, of which it is very.
We can't hear you, Fabish. I think we have lost him. Before he gets in, perhaps we can go back to Senator for a moment so that he can respond to what he has had so far about young people's disillusionment with the use of tribe, with the use of leadership and political parties, and what his answer is to young Kenyans at this point in time, before we go to the next speaker.
Yeah, I think what the young people are really demanding is that a new order has to emerge. A new order, they can no longer be peasants locked away in their villages. Climate change has also happened. You can't feed yourself as a peasant. They need service jobs. The country just needs to be modernized. So the young people don't see a future for themselves. If you look at the default position now is that you are primed to be poorer than your parent. If you have to share the wealth your parent has, then you are 2, 3, then you share, and then you become poorer than your parents. So that's a reality that is pushing young people to come out and demand that this country can be better. And I think this is not a demand that is really idle or isolated, because if you look at our history all through, it has befallen upon the shoulders of the young people to demand progress. Although they may not have been betrayed here and there, you look at the Mau Mau, how many young people went out to fight? It is not the old people who are sacrificed, it was young people, and so on and so forth. So this generation now, we have the Gen Z who are leading the charge, but it is across the generations that people want to see change. That people want to see change. Like myself, I just turned 60 the other days, but I've been at this thing for a very long time, trying to say that this country can be governed in a better way. It's not something that began yesterday. I'm only happy that there's a groundswell that now has again come up. Before me, you saw there were many people fought in the 70s, in the 80s. That's within my lifetime, who did a lot of fighting. Today we have Uhuru Park standing because of Professor Okiya Omtatah and the Wangari Maathai, and so forth. So we are people who have taken, who have stood up to demand that this country be given a better direction, be given proper leadership. There's been a missing link sometimes in the struggle. The missing link has been that most of the push for change was externally funded. And because it was depending on the same people who are responsible for, whose agents were responsible for the mess we were in, they managed to craft a script that said, keep off politics. Keep off politics. You can do everything you are doing, but keep off politics. You can work hard, get a new constitution, but keep off politics. Yet politics is how things are done. So we came up, we did a lot of struggles, but they fed back into the hands of the same collaborators of the neo-colonial order, that we ended up not reaping the fruits of the struggle. So when you mention about Jomo Kenyatta and this ilk throughout our history, you place your finger on the problem. Now, how is that problem going to be solved? The problem is going to be solved by coming out and saying, beyond being leaderless, you are the leaders. You are leading yourself. You are not following somebody else. And if that clarion call of leaderless meant that you are not following the existing leaders, for me, it's a very good clarion call. You become the leaders yourselves. You roll up your sleeves. You go into the majoritarian institutions, take them over, and use them to do what is good for this country. A lot of civil society movements have ended up in a wreck. Even the new constitution is being threatened to be destroyed because there was no organization for political leadership. In terms of sensitization, we just got sensitized in the terms of civic education, how to vote, how to comply, how to be compliant within the system. It's the kind of education that has been there. There's been no political education. So you find that you have got these beautiful books, people don't know what answers they have. But with these beautiful laws, people don't know how much power they unlock for the ordinary people. And so the ordinary people continue being helpless and powerless because they don't know how to make good their condition. And so, for me, the discussion is a starting point whereby we say we are going to stop complaining. And we are going to begin organizing ourselves for the future. We are going to begin organizing for ourselves today to take over so that our future can be in our hands. And there's no better way of doing that than being politically organized as voters and as candidates. You can't be voters if you don't have candidates. It will be useless to vote for people whom you don't believe in. You can't be candidates with all the good ideas if you don't have voters who believe in you, who can vote for you. And so the political sensitization must come up is that we must be that. And being tribeless is that we must transcend the tribe the tribe emerged that because organizing in groups, you could be good hunters as groups, you could be good farmers as a group, you could be good herders as a group. But now that group that we call that ethnic group must give way to another form of organizing that allows you to harvest much more than being tied to the tribal group. The tribal group has done its part. It can no longer continue delivering in the new state. So we must create a new identity of the Kenyan, a new identity of people who are demanding to be organized as other modern countries are organized. We must get to a point whereby we are productive, we are creating wealth, and that wealth is benefiting us, not other people. So, and the most important way to do that is to get organized politically, because a state is a political organization. Get organized politically so that we can administer that state using the values that we believe in. Otherwise, if we don't do that, we go back to what Plato said. If you don't get active in politics, something like that, you get ruled by those who are worse than you, or something like that. So I think here is where we are. And here is where you and me must make the conscious decision to know that this war is a political war. It's a war to put hands on the levers of the state. If we don't frame that war that way, and we understand the weapons we need to deploy, then we will find that this country will continue being decimated, the state will continue being weakened. When I was growing up as a kid, we had universal health care. You could walk, we could go. When you are sick, you could just simply be taken to a local hospital and you are treated, you are given drugs and everything, you go. There were doctors there, the medicines were there, and we went. Now, what is happening? It's the private hospitals that seem to be functioning, and they run on the profit, on basis of making profit and as much profit as possible. And you find that now the government is even going around and saying they want to turn healthcare into something based on insurance premiums, not funded by the taxpayer. So you wonder what is happening. Look at our universities. What's all this that's happening? Why don't we want people to be educated? Look at our primary schools, our pre-unit systems, our colleges. What is happening? Are we really organizing this country to compete globally? Are we really doing that? Or are we following an agenda that is leading us leading a charge off the cliff so that you can fall into some abyss? Those are the things we need to look at. Those are the things we need to organize and come up, and as many people as possible should emerge in various spaces, be it MCA, be it member of parliament, that means the senator, women rep, and member of National Assembly, be it as governors, be it as president. Vie and let us see your vision. Let us give people the opportunity to choose the best there is. Let us not sit back and expect somebody else to do for us. Because when we create, when the cream does not rise to the top, the rubbish will rise to the top. That's the law of nature. So we must be aware of that. And so the young people, for me, I really pray that you step forward, give us that energy, breathe life into our institutions, and say no to playing second fiddle to anybody on the planet. We must never play second fiddle. If anybody thinks we are not equal, then they must be the lesser party. We must tell them, okay, we are not equal because I'm better than you. We must never accept anything less than that. And that's how we are going to move this country forward. And for me, that's what drives me. That's what has driven me. And I want us to do this as a people. We want to do it because the destination we have to go across as a people. We cannot do it as individuals. And so I pray that we really understand the unique place in history we occupy today. We respect of our generation. Every Kenyan who has got any breath in him or her is called upon to stand up for this country, to stop this country falling into the abyss, to stop the chief shares and what have you, to stop the Anglo leasings, to stop the Adanis, to stop the Kendrick fertilizer scandals, and above that, to hold those accountable, those responsible accountable, so that people can know that when you mess in public office, you don't walk away free. You get dealt with by the state. And that's the only time when our national anthem will begin making sense to us. Today, when you speak the national anthem, and I've said this before, it's like you're singing a national anthem of a foreign country. You don't see the Republic of Kenya within that national anthem, but we must make it to be seen. We right now, our per capita income is a paltry 1,900 USD. What can you do with that in the modern world? And especially again, when you go down and look at how it is distributed, you find that about 70% of it is in the hands of about 5%. The rest is scrambling for the leftovers. So we have the duty and obligation today to stand up and say, we are at $1,900 USD per capita. In the next 5 to 10 years, we must be at $30,000 USD per capita. What do we need to do? That should be the question. That should be the challenge of leadership. That should be the rallying call, so that we do whatever is required to make our people rich, to make not just to fight poverty. Fighting poverty is abstract. We must make people rich. We must count rich people have created. We must go to our villages and realize that the poverty levels of $2. I don't even know if you use $2 per day. I don't know how many will qualify. But we must get people living above $2 per day in the villages, in the urban areas. We must begin creating millionaires out of enterprise. We must see rich people emerging in this country. Then the general population must become rich. We must not get a situation whereby people are living in abject squalor. And then they have got no rights. They can't even defend their rights. Where I sit in my office here, I get so many people coming with issues that are the solutions are in the law. They can't afford a lawyer. You see? And then you find that there are so many lawyers who are unemployed today because they can't run an office with people who cannot pay. They cannot open an office with people who cannot pay. So these contradictions we must get rid of them. And the solution lies in politics. We must get the politics of this country right. We must get a government that has the right intentions and have got the goodwill and that believes in the rule of law and that implements the law as it is today, so that our resources can work for us and we can liberate ourselves from that, the squalor in which we find ourselves. You can't even talk of a middle class in Kenya today. Look at our roads. The traffic jams are full of junk that has been rejected by Japan. You can hardly see a new vehicle, 0 mileage on the road. If you go to Mombasa, we are importing rejects. We are just that poor. Although sometimes feel very big when we are driving these castaways and think we are progressive. We are not. We must get to be able to do what's necessary. We must compete with the rest of the world. And there is no reason why we can't do it, because our country is heavily endowed, be it human resource. We can compete with any. Natural resources, we beat very many others who are doing much better than we are doing. So I don't think we have got any reason to be where we are today. We must be where we ought to be. And that is a challenge, and that's the call upon everybody. And that, to me, is the clarion call I see in the clamor for change that is being driven by the Gen Z. It may be framed in a different ways. The framings might be different, but for me, the message is the same, irrespective of the frame, that this country can not continue doing the same things it has been doing since independence, where a few people use the state for personal aggrandizement, where public office is for enriching the individual and not for working for legacy, where the richest people in the country have either been civil servants or politicians, and not people who have done anything, invented anything, where being in the academics, where your professors are really rubbish and among the poor people. To be a professor among the poor people, unless you are organized, maybe to participate in the theft. So we must go back and create a republic that rewards enterprise, that rewards labor, that rewards intellectual input, not one that rewards thieves. We must destroy this republic that rewards theft. We must get a republic that rewards work. That's what would be my contribution for now.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Senator, for that rousing contribution. So I think what you've talked about that I think is really interesting for us to think about a little bit moving forward is this depoliticization. Yeah, a lot of us grew up in a country where we were told politics is dirty, politics is for terrible people, don't engage in politics, you know, and so even, you know, so that takes away the only actual tool that we have to change our country. And so we're made to believe that we should not participate in political processes, and that the only thing we have is the vote. We show up every 5 years, we cast our vote, and then we keep quiet for the rest of the time and wait until someone comes to be voted for again in 5 years. What that has led to has been described here by many of the speakers, that we keep getting the same people packaged in different, you know, old wine in new skins over and over again. And we have never been able to have leadership in this country that prioritizes the needs of the people. So on that note, I want to invite Tom Boyer to talk a little bit about, you know, the way civil society and the Imperial West have used, have tried to subject Kenyans to this paradigm of depoliticization, and to advance that conversation about how we liberate our country fully so that we can actually have real democracy in the country. Sorry, and before Tom Boyer joins, I'd like to give a reminder that we would like all contributions to be just about 3 minutes long, so that we can have time to have as many people as possible speaking, and also to remind you to follow a certain amount of madness so that you can be kept, so that you know when we have new episodes coming in as we go along the way. So Tom Boyer, if you're with us, please jump in.
Hello, Kenyans. I hope you are doing well. Kindly confirm if I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Well, I'm just going to be brief. I'll just like to encourage Kenyans to be able to follow a political pathway that will give us a reliable voice. If you are here and would like to vie for any political position, I encourage you to seek to work with Okiya Omtatah through National Reconstruction Alliance. Seek to have these strategic discussions on how we are going to take power. Number two, I'm just going to ask Mr. Okiya Omtatah a question to do with something that we are very passionate about. I like the fact that the first speakers talked about the root cause, the reason as to why we are where we are. And this has to do with the fact that we are still under colonization. It is well understood throughout the sub-Saharan countries that our presidents are largely puppets of US and the West. What guarantee should we have that when he takes power, he can be able to take a different route so that everything that works in the country are not just to continue passing policies that are aligned to the interests of the West? That is something I'm very much passionate about. This is why I always qualify the person I'll be able to support as a presidential candidate as a fearless, courageous leader, knowing that the Honorable Okiya Omtatah has all other qualifications to do with integrity, discipline, principality, and every other thing. So that's simple. That's only what I'd like to say. Let us avoid let us avoid contributing to the propaganda that is being shared, like the likes of Okiya Omtatah are projects. There are people who are just there to confuse us left, right, and centers. Let us get to organize ourselves through the existing political party. Let us go and take political power. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Now let's invite the atheists in Kenya society to also make a submission.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Harrison Mumia, and I want to begin by thanking Leader Omtatah. You made very good submissions. I've listened to the other speakers. Thank you very much. You have such a depth of understanding of very important concepts. And I won't take a lot of time. I just want to say that I agree with Okiya Omtatah. We are at war. We have to prepare. We have to fight. We have to organize. We have to decide what tools we are going to use. Time is not on our side. Any time we waste to organize, any time we are wasting, any time that is passing, the other side is also organizing. You are now saying they are starting to appoint politicians who, oh gosh, please mute. Can't be me.
Okay, you can unmute yourself now. Mumia, you can unmute and continue.
You've given me the mic? Can you?
Mumia still has the mic. The atheists in Kenya, they still have the mic. So I have muted everybody.
Can someone confirm if you can hear me?
I can hear you, Kathomi, but I don't think the submission from the Atheist Society of Kenya was over. Can you hear me, Kathomi?
Mamka, I can hear you. So
yeah,
let's have the Atheist Association of Kenya complete making their submissions, and then we'll go to Kathomi like you had proposed.
Yes. Mumia, if you're still with us, please jump in. But if you are not, I would like in the meantime to encourage everybody to pose questions to the speakers, to the senator, and to all the other speakers in the comments. And we're going to be able to, because we'd like this to be as interactive as possible. And if Mumia, you're able to jump in, please do. If not, then we'll go to Kithomi.
It does appear that we lost Mumia. So Kathomi, please have the mic and let's keep the conversation going. Karibu Kathomi.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. A bit of connection problem, but I'm just hoping you can hear me. My name is Mary Kathomi, and thank you, Muthiora, and the entire team that has hosted this space for Senator Okiya Omtatah. And in
We can no longer hear you, Kathomi. Okay, please.
Sorry, sorry. I don't know. There's a host that muted me. Let me go again. If you can hear me, just a show of hand or something. If you can hear me.
We can hear you now. We can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Again, let me go. I'm Mary Kadhomiriongo. And I work for Senator Okiya Omtatah's bid. I'm the chairleader of the PEC, the Presidential Exploratory Committee. And we are very happy for what this team is doing, Muthiora and the entire Gen Z team, for hosting Senator on this platform. Just to just put in my thoughts out there, in very few minutes, maybe like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, is to reiterate that there is no vacuum in power. So as much as the Gen Z movement are leaderless, we must be able to organize and always be ready to take political power. I know they've made politics look really dirty. You know, they say it's evil, it's murky, you know, don't go to politics, you know, live your life, preach in church, do your corporate work, do your business. They paint politics to look that bad because they want to dominate. And it's upon us now to take into that space of politics, seek elective positions. And I just want to let everyone know that Senator Okiya Omtatah has already put himself out there for the presidential bid. There is no second guessing if he's going to be on the ballot, you know. So that is a very bold step. And I would call upon every Gen Z, every person to plug in the way, you know, just plug in like we did in the Gen Z movement. Because this is not one person's bid. It is a change for the country. We must own it and we must run with it. And we do not have a lot of time. We don't have time. The people that we are, our opponents, are very well organized and they understand politics. You're saying 2025, 2026, that is just like a day in politics. We must go on the ground, we must organize, we must say what we want the next government to look like. We do not want to be caught unawares. You can see what is happening on the other side. They are really building coalitions, and they are coalitions of evil. They put one person on the extreme side and you tend to think this is the right person, but it's an entire coalition of a corrupt elite. And that's not where we want to be. So I would just call upon everyone. You know, we were so good in the Gen Z movement. Let's plug in every space. Senator is a very reachable person. You inbox him, you call him, you visit him in his office, he's always ready to listen. Let's plug in every shape and form and take this country where we want to take it. We cannot wait. We cannot sit on the side and wait. We have to be the people to do it. Even the people in the diaspora, people in the corporate world, people in Mashinani, we are the people that called him to the space. So we must be able to embrace and run with this project. It is our project and we have to do it. You're going to be seeing a lot of us in 2025. You're going to be seeing us on the ground a lot more. We are going to be listening to what Kenyans want to be done. We are going to put our ears literally in every corner of the country because we want to build a bid for the people. We are not going to be the people walking and saying, tutawapea lami hapa, tutajenga hii nyumba hapa. No. We are going to bring this country back to the constitution and listen to what the people want done in this nation. So let's not waste time. Let's plug in, you know, let's stop second guessing. Tusikae pale tukisema, oh, senators. Let's plug in and let's run with this project. You can see exactly what's happening on the other side. When you see even officials of the EU going to visit Uhuru, you can see the way they are planning. Even for the next 10 years, they have a plan. We cannot be caught unawares. We can only plan and work really hard. I don't want to hoggle on the mic. Muthiora, thank you so much with your team of what you're doing. We want to sit and listen to what Kenyans want the next government to look like. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. I think I really admire the fact that there is real planning going into this, that the senators' agenda and all the different political parties who've had a chance to speak here, it's very clear that they're listening to the people, because that is what we need. We need a leadership that is responding to the needs of the people. And with that, I'm going to hand over to the Kenyan German lady. to give us a submission. Keep it at 3 minutes. And to everybody who is asking for the mic, we are going to try and make sure everybody who wants to speak tonight is able to speak. So we ask for your patience.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're listening from. Thank you very much for according me the opportunity to speak on the space. Good evening, Honorable Senator Okiya Omtatah. We appreciate your presence more than you'll ever know. So I'm going to try to limit my submission. One thing I observe as somebody who has worked and works with the regime in my country of residence is exclusion in this movement. There is exclusion based on tribe, political affiliation, on age, on experience, on location, or even the accent. So that undermines the success of any revolution. You cannot exclude a certain group of people and expect to be successful in a revolution. It takes concerted efforts to defeat a dictator. And that is something Kenyans, I think, have not internalized. So I'm going to be, like I said, very brief and very fast. So history has shown that dictators have never, ever relinquished power without resistance. Without protests, a dictator will never surrender power, and the country, Kenya, risks heading down a path similar to Tanzania. You know, we have Yoweri Museveni, who's been in power for several decades and is not going to surrender power. If he surrenders, it's going to be to his son. So I'm urging Kenyans, first of all, the aspect of exclusion, that has to be dealt with. Also on spaces, we see people gatekeeping spaces, the same speakers all the time, and I'm honestly very grateful to be accorded this opportunity. Just let me touch briefly on something I see, a worrisome narrative that is circulating on social media. We have these ICC, people are talking about reporting Mr. William Ruto to ICC. That is deviating from the movement, because if you've ever heard of the Malabo Protocol, and I'm going to talk about that very briefly, really just under 2 minutes now, the Malabo Protocol and its implications for political accountability. Now, Mr. William Ruto, he signed the Malabo Protocol on July 14th, 2023. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Malabo Protocol, but this protocol grants immunity to sitting presidents and heads of state and senior government officials from prosecution by the International Criminal Court. So for crimes committed during their tenure, that is like genocide, like he's doing right now, the Malabo Protocol excludes him. So when you talk about the ICC reporting into the ICC, really, you have no political background, honestly. I just really roll my eyes sometimes and just laugh about it. And this means that under this Malabo Protocol, the sitting president in Kenya and other senior government officials cannot be tried at the ICC while they are in office. I'm not talking about the term after that. So as of now, only 16 African countries have ratified this Malabo Protocol. We need all 54 nations, of course, to ratify it so that they can be excluded from these ICC trials. Since the ICC was constituted, it has only, as we see, been trying heads of state from the African continent, and that is why we're calling for it, calling to African leaders to ratify the Malabo Protocol. And he did that, like I said, on July 14th, 2023. You know what was happening on July 14th, 2023? There were increased Maandamano protests. And that is the only and the sole reason why Mr. William Ruto ratified this protocol. So please don't talk about the ICC. Let us focus on the future and what Kenya can achieve. Now, just a very last point, please, if you allow me. There is also to the topic, the concept of leaderless political movements. Now, such movements have both advantages, of course, and disadvantages. On the positive side, of course, we have the absence of a central leader, which ensures inclusivity and equality, allowing everyone to have a voice. Now, these movements are likely to be co-opted or influenced by external forces maintaining their original goals. They're less likely to be influenced or co-opted, as we saw during the protests in June, because there was no leader, leaderless, tribeless, partyless. And that is what led to the success of the movement in June. We now, just to really wind up, I would like to say that on the other hand, now without a central figure, of course, it is harder for opponents to target and neutralize the movement, allowing for more innovative and flexible decision making. And in addition, of course, we have leaderless movements often appeal to grassroots supporters, mobilizing people who may be skeptical of hierarchical leadership. And then we have now the challenges they face, really last points, okay? There is the coordinating actions and strategies which are difficult without a leader, leading to fragmented efforts. Engaging in negotiations with authorities or other stakeholders is harder, of course, without a designated representative. The absence of a unified voice can result in mixed messages, making it challenging to maintain a coherent narrative and clear objectives. So what are the objectives? Who presents these objectives? And sustaining this momentum over a long period is also difficult without a leader or a leadership structure to provide direction and motivation. So I would like to see the committee of Honorable Senator Okiya Omtatah, please be more present on spaces. We want to hear you, because since you announced that your candidacy, we don't see
so much for
or
your
hear
submission.
you anymore. And
sorry, I'm going to have to. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to take the mic away from you because we have gone quite over. But thank you so
absolutely.
much. I think that the point you
totally
have
agree
made.
with that. Thank you very much once again. Okay.
You're very welcome. So
let me drop.
Yes, indeed, this is the moment when the forces on the streets that came together under leaderlessness, that were mobilized by that sense of inclusivity, that sense of democracy, that sense of that everybody had a place. This is the time for us to bring together those forces under organized forms so that we can fight this. Because as it has been said by senators, but it has been said over and over again, we are at war. We have been at war for a while, but the war is intensifying, and the pushback from the organized leadership, as you have seen, is very organized. They have all come together. They have always had the same interests. They have always acted like they're on different sides of the divide. However, it is so obvious now that they have always been working together, and they know that we are at war, and so they have come together. So it is that this is the time for us to come together and to organize behind institutions that can carry the message that we have and that can line us up so that we can have a direct assault on this form of governance. So I want to hand back over to Mumia, who I think had dropped off. If you are here, please give us your submission again. And then after that, we are going to go to my comrade Sefusani.
Thank you so much. I will take 3 minutes. And let me just thank Leader Okiya Omtatah. I know you from the courts. There was a time we interacted at the courts in a matter which I won.
Kindly, I cannot hear. Kindly, please.
Can you hear me?
I can hear. Can people indicate whether they can hear?
I hope you can hear me kindly, please.
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
Okay,
just carry on as they sort out the technical problem they're having.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to say, Omtatah, there is one thing you have that is a real asset. Kenyans do trust you. There is overwhelming trust. As a matter of fact, I do think that currently you are the only politician who has a lot of trust and you carry the hopes of Kenyans at this time in the history of our country. I just want to say a number of things. This is a political contest. We are going into 2027. We have 3 years. Okiya Omtatah, my counsel to you at this point, there is no time to waste. We need you to be tweeting. When you see things that require your response, please make a tweet. We need you to be on the ground. This idea of next year, we don't want to wait for next year. Things are happening. We want to see you calling press conferences right now. Call them and address matters that are of importance. That way you're going to build political traction, because that is what the other side is doing. They are not sleeping. They are regrouping. They are reorganizing. They are in cabinets. Some of them are becoming permanent secretaries. So we have to reorganize. We have to always take a day as a time to reorganize. Finally, let me just say that as we do the reorganization towards 2027, and please, even right now, again, as the person that Kenyans are looking up to, consider the following. We need a review of the Constitution. The Constitution right now is not aligned to the needs of Kenyans. The current political system, where we have the presidential system, is not working. Ruto has appointed the opposition members of parliament to cabinet. Now, the opposition is dead. On behalf of the atheists in Kenya society, I am proposing a parliamentary system. I would like you to consider reviewing the laws of Kenya. A lot of our laws are not in line with what the Kenyans want. I want you to have an overhaul. Let us look at a corruption, not just the corruption that's happening now. When you take power, please go back to the days of Moi. Where did the rain start beating us? Where did corruption start beating us? We have so many reports, even in Parliament, Okiya Omtatah. Those reports are lying there. We have the reports that were written during the Moi era. We have reports during the Kibaki era. We have reports during the Uhuru era. Reports that have tried to address so many issues, they're just lying there. Okiya Omtatah, you know very well, people have died. People have died, not just the Gen Zs. Myself, I'm 45 years, so I belong to the generation of, we saw how Moi killed people during the Nyayo era. So Okiya Omtatah, we are putting it upon you not just to deal with the current issues, but to deal with the historical issues and to overhaul the current system. But I will go back to where we are right now. It is time to play politics. Do not sleep. Okiya Omtatah, wake up, look at what's happening, issue press conferences, talk to the people. We want to see you in every county. Do what you must do to be present before the people of Kenya, because we are not all on spaces. A lot of Kenyans don't even have internet. You must go out there, Okiya Omtatah. It is time to go out there. Do not wait for next year. The team that is behind Okiya Omtatah, we have no time. If somebody can be tweeting on behalf of Okiya Omtatah, let him tweet. Oscar Sudi has graduated. Okiya Omtatah, tell Oscar Sudi that doctorate of his does not make sense to us. This guy is a thief. Okiya Omtatah, we need you on the ground. Every day, the other side is reorganizing. My message to you is, let us not sleep. Let us reorganize. Be active today, tomorrow, until the day of the elections. Thank you very much.
Mumia, I know the next thing you were going to ask was if we know that Peter Muteti was abducted yesterday because of expressing himself, and we still do not know of his whereabouts. I know you were going to continue and tell us about the appointment that happened of former ICC suspects. You remember the radio presenter who is now the director in charge of public communications.
Yes.
I know you have quite a lot. We've had you, and I'm sure the senator will be making a plan to and guarantee that we are headed in the right direction. Comrade Sefu, I know you've been waiting to come in. This is your chance. You have the mic. Let's do this, Sefu.
Yeah, just before Comrade Sefu comes in, let me just repost some of the questions that have come up in the chat that I hope Senator can think about as Comrade Sefu speaks. So the questions that have come up, Senator, are: what are you going to do about the corrupt? How are we going to address accountability? And I suppose people want a sort of detailed plan of action. The question that has been raised by Mumia about constitutional review: is this the time for reviewing the constitution, or is this the time of implementing it and staying faithful to its letter to achieve its vision? I think that there are arguments that can be made for either outcome. And then, what is the plan of action for the campaign? I think the young people here, I have already seen a few people who want to volunteer for the campaign. How can they reach you? How can they volunteer? And what's the plan of action? What should we expect to see in the coming weeks and months? And then the question that has come up that is thematic over and over again is the question of education. Someone has asked about secondary education. Someone has asked about university education. And even though this is not the space where we really just dig into your manifesto yet, I think that these are some of the questions that have come up. So you can give them some thinking as Comrade Sefu jumps in. And Sefu, tell us about the war and what are you doing about this war that is that we are facing, and what do you urge the young people to do?
Thank you very much, Comrade Mamka, even for being part of this team and having this conversation. Thank you, Senator Muthiora, and the whole team, that is behind these conversations. And first of all, I just want to congratulate the explorative committee for Okiya Omtatah, because I think they're doing a good job. We heard from Miss Kadomi, excuse me. And one thing I just want to say is the explorative committee has just been mentioned. So we are talking about the limits of leaderlessness, because we want leadership. So they cannot really come to us in anarchy. Even them, they need to sit, they need to organize, and then come to the people. So it cannot be haphazard, and I'm sure that in time we are going to have this. Now, when we are speaking about the limits of leaderlessness, I just wanted to maybe rebut that a bit to say that really what we are calling for is leadership. I've heard from some of the conversations that you see when we had the youthful uprising in June, most of us as the young people, the Gen Z and millennials, were saying that we are a leaderless people. But I think the leaderlessness was actually coming from a lack of faith, in whatever it is that we have seen of late, but not just a lack of faith, but also a lack of leadership. So when the Gen Zs and the millennials and the youthful people in this country are saying we are leaderless, it is not, in my opinion, to say that they don't want a leader. It is to say that the kind of leadership we have seen until now is not, good enough, and it's not something that we can have faith in. In the same way, when they say that we are partyless, the kind of parties that we have had until now, are not the best. The kind of parties that we have had now, are not the best. The examples they've shown us is ethnic. So even when they're saying we are tribeless, it is to rebuke all these things, that are happening. But one thing is that the senator has proved himself over time. And because of his values and the things that he has done for the people of Kenya, people are able to see him and say, this is something that we admire. Although now I'll just add the senator that this is something that needs to keep going. Of course, we support you. We support this bid because of what you have shown unto us through the works that you've done for the people, through the justice you have merited, and you have earned it. If anything, the call for your presidentship was the people, rallying and calling.
Sefu, I believe we have lost you. But as we wait for Sefu to come back, Sefu, I think you're muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Am I back, Mamka?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, sorry. All right, my apologies. What I was saying is that really, when we're talking about the limits of leaderlessness, the call is about leadership. When the youthful uprising happened in June, and the young people in Kenya were saying that we are leaderless, the call was not really against leadership, but it was against the lack of leadership that we have seen, and the kind of, the kind of quote unquote leadership that we have seen, which has not espoused any of the values that we would look up to, in leadership. In the same way, when we are saying that we are tribeless, the reason for that is because the leadership we've seen has been largely ethnical, and it was calling out that. Also saying we are partyless, it's because the examples of parties we have seen so far have been rooted in ethnicity, and we are seeing that in the ruling parties we are having. So really, the call was for a call of leadership. I am sure that Senator Omtatah espoused this, and it is the reason why his presidential bid is a call from the people. A lot of people kept saying, we need to know, this just man. If this person would rise, then we are willing. But it's because he showcased what he would do for the people over time. He has earned his stripes. My call, Senator, is that you continue to do this. Is that this continues, because the people have their hopes in you. But I also want to call us out on another thing, that we are always looking for a savior. I remember at some time back when we had the AU vying, Kenyan who is vying Raila Odinga, when he said people were calling him Joshua, or he called himself Joshua, because people want to identify with a savior. And that is one of, the things that is ailing us. Because even now, we are putting, of course, everything on Omtatah, and we're saying, oh, wow, this is our savior. But, God forbid, what happens if something happens and Omtatah is not there, or if they try to take him out? Does that mean that all the hopes of the people are gone? It is important for us as a people, and even for the presidential candidate, that we are able to anchor ourselves in something, such that we have a leader of a movement where we all believe in this movement. We all know what are the tenets of this movement. We all have one line of thinking that unites us all. We all know, for example, we want industrialization of 15% through the budget. We want agriculture. We want to be able to have our foreign policy work like ABCD. So even when we have this leader, they are only doing what it is that we know we want. And in case of anything that this leader is not there, anybody else is able to rise up, because the ideology is very clear of what we want. So we need to get out of this savior mentality, that a savior is going to come and save us. We need to all be part of this movement and say, these are our ideals, these are the tenets, this is what we want for our agriculture, for our industry, for our constitution, for our foreign policy. And we have this one person who is espousing it. But in case this one person is not there, we have other leaders who will still be able to rise up, because the whole issue of us having a savior, I think, is a place we need to get out of. And with that, my question for the senator would be, I would like to know what your ideology is and what your stand is, because it is very important for us to be able to hold you accountable, even at the time of you ascending into this powerful seat, to be able to remember, what it is that we stand for. Another thing I want to talk about is the issue of political education. When we saw the youthful uprising coming up, there was political education. There were messages going out every day. If you were on the street, you would see messages such as the IMF drafted finance bill, and people knew that it was drafted by the IMF. What does that call to? It talks about the foreign policy of our country. When people were talking about, when people are talking about taxation of basic commodities, such as bread or such as sanitation, there was a lot of political education. There were a lot of, articles that were going out on different social media. That is one of the forms of political education. And it's very important for us to continue with political education and to take it very seriously in all our organizations, to ensure that we actually take part in political education, that we we are able to educate ourselves on what is going on. We're able to organize and we're able to mobilize, because this is the tool that the other people are using, the ones we are calling, because they mobilize. But how do they mobilize? They do political education of some sort that brainwashes the people. So this is one of the things that we need to put at the center of what we are doing. And through this political education, then we can organize our people and we can mobilize them, and then we can get to the liberation. And of course, there are many other more works that are going on. Mamka, you asked me what I personally am doing. Of course, I'm involved in certain formations as well to bring about this change into a country, such as the Kenya Left Alliance, where we are also coming up to be able to speak and see what we can do for our country. I organize through art as well, and through communication, like what is happening here. So for me, those are the channels that I have used and I continue to use. And to just say that really we want proper leadership, and we don't need a savior, but we need a movement where we all have ideals that everybody espouses, so that today, if somebody is to say, Kadhomi, please go and take this seat, we know that she's going to actually execute the ideals that we all have, as opposed to having, all our hopes on this idea that we are going to have a savior for our country. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Sefu. That was a very, very passionate appeal to organizing, to the power of organizing and the power of being in movements. Because you're very right. Ultimately, the political organization in Kenya has been such that it has centered individuals. And so Kenyans have always believed that they're going to be saved by one person. So then Kenyans ask, who is it? If not Ruto, if not Raila, if not Uhuru, if not whoever else, then who is it? But the answer can never be an individual. No individual is going to save us. And even the most well-meaning individual is going to be defeated by the system if they are not backed by an incredibly strong movement that has, what you have said, Sefu, singularity of thought, that we have this clear thinking about what this country ought to be, and that is a shared idea by the masses, and that those masses are the ones who are going to defend that agenda, whoever the leader is, and such that the individual is just carrying the dreams, the aspirations, the hopes of the people, that they're not themselves the savior of the people. So that is another question that when we get back to Senator, I hope he's able to answer. Who is the movement behind you? What is the ideology that is driving that movement? And how are you going to ensure that that what the committee is doing as they explore your run is bringing people together behind a shared agenda? So now, before we continue, let me just give the mic back to Fabish, who I think has entered, who has been able to rejoin us. I think he had dropped off, and then we can move on to the next speaker. Fabish, if you're not with us, then I'm going to hand back over to Maganga, and maybe Maganga can tell us, can expound on that point about the importance of movements. Maganga, are you with us?
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, of course, to all who've given their contributions, who've asked questions regarding what the ways forward are, regarding what tasks lie ahead. And yes, to simply reinforce what I had said earlier and what has basically been the theme for tonight's conversation is it's indeed important for us to be affiliated to organizations, for us to be members of organizations, for the very simple reason that since the ruling class is organized, and since they are the ruling class on the basis of their organization, then it is only by we being organized that we shall be able to defeat them, that we shall be able to actually, install a system that works for us and a system that fulfills our aspirations. So it really is important, as Comrade Sefu and other comrades have said, not to base our campaigns, not to base our ideas on individuals, but to understand that it is important for movements to actually be built, which then carry forward the ideas that the people have. And of course, the individuals who are members of that movement, that organization, or that platform become simply adherents of this idea that people collectively have come up with. This, of course, is being scientific with the fact that it is only by the collective action of people that actual success can be achieved, and that we can never stand isolated from the processes that take place in our society and in our communities. Ideas are cultivated collectively, ways forward are discussed and cultivated collectively, and it is only by the collective power of people that actual change comes up. So it's important that we remind the people that we are not saviors, that nobody is a savior, that they should not expect any savior, they should not expect any superheroes, but that they should expect organized forces, movements, organizations to be the collective voice of the change that they want to see. And of course, anyone who would be part of the organization, the movement, this collective voice that emerges, then gets to articulate what the people collectively have come up with. I think I can just say that in response to the question as regards the importance of movements.
Okay, thank you so much, Comrade Maganda. I think someone needs to mute. Okay, great. So now we want to open it up to the speakers who have requested to speak, and we're going to hand you the mic and give you a maximum of 3 minutes each so that we can make sure everyone has a chance to speak. But before we do, let's go back to the senator, for whom a couple of questions have been asked. How are you mobilizing a movement behind you? What are the plans what's the plan of action? What do we expect to see in the coming weeks and months? And just very lightly, without going too deep into it, touch onto your position on the Constitution, your position on education. I know that these things will be expounded once you have a manifesto based on the findings of the exploratory committee. But if you can give some very high-level responses to the people.
Yes, thank you for the chance again. Yeah, first of all, I want to begin with the Constitution, because for me, that's my North Star. The Constitution was a ceasefire document. It's a ceasefire in the sense that in it there are very many opposing sides, very many proposals were brought up, some were rejected, some were accepted, and so we ended up with this Constitution. It was never intended to be a perfect document in the sense of scientific achievement, but it's a social manual. It's a social manual that aims at achieving something, which is a modern state. And so this Constitution, for me, needs to be implemented first. We see how it works, then we can begin amending it, if at all there's need to amend it. We went presidential from parliamentary, so presidential we have. Let us implement it and see what promise it has. And there are a few things that if we implement it, you would find that it doesn't matter whether presidential or parliamentary. The fight for power is a fight for resources. It's a fight to control the past. But if you look at the architecture in this Constitution, whether it's parliamentary or presidential, the treasury is supposed to be independent of the Ministry of Finance. Politicians should not run the treasury. The treasury should be under national treasurer, run professionally by professionals. And politicians should not have access to money. In fact, the design of this country is such that politicians don't sign anywhere except may be on treaties. But when it comes to the technical issues, it is the experts who sign. In implementation of contracts, it's drawing up of contracts. It's experts who draw them, the lawyers. Implementation of, say, maybe you are doing a road, it's the engineers. You are auditing the books, it's the accountants. So this country is designed to be run by professionals on a hands-on basis, with politicians providing a policy framework and maybe giving a vision where they would like to get. So if we implemented our constitution, we should be able to see how it works. But you find that most of the institutions that are required to underpin our constitutional dispensation, which are clearly prescribed in the framework of the constitution itself, are not in place or are misplaced or they don't even exist. So we need to do that and then talk about how is it performing for us. So I think it's a bit premature to talk of amending it. And that's why I've been opposed to the NADICO process. That's why I was opposed to the BBI. And I was saying implement first, see how it performs, then you can fix it, if at all it needs fixing. We can't begin fixing what we have not tested. Number two, as regards to what needs to be done to the people who have stolen from the public, I think the law should take its course against these people. And I think we would rely on Article 226 of the 226 Clause 5 of the Constitution, which is a very, very short phrase, but it says quite a bit about what needs to be done. And if you may allow me to read it, it simply says it's under what you call protection of public fund, that section. It says, if a holder of a public office, comma, including a political office, comma, directs or approves the use of public funds contrary to law or instructions, the person is liable for any loss arising from that use and shall make good the loss, whether the person remains the holder of the office or not. So that one doesn't need anything from anybody. Just allow the law to take its course, and people will be held accountable. We have the solutions we need. For the last 1 week, I've been looking at borrowing by under the Jubilee government, and the documents I've accessed. That is from 2014. I left out 2013 when they came in to 2022. Because the 2013, I did not get the documents that I required. I think the Treasury was not keeping a record. But from 2014 to 2022, I've done an audit and I've been able to create a paper trail. That's what I've done for over the last few days. And I'm realizing that when you take the account for payment of loans, which is that the loans that you have paid, we paid 5 trillion shillings over the 10 years Uhuru was in power, or maybe talk it 8, because the first 9 years, the first year was a bit, I've not been able to get documentation. Then the amount of money that was authorized to be borrowed is 2 trillion. So the question is, where did the 3 trillion go? So where did the 3 trillion go in terms of the record of the government itself when you interrogate them? So this kind of money will need to follow up and ask, where did this money go? That's a lot of money. Where did it go? Was it stolen by pretending we were paying loans, or were some loans borrowed without the approval of Parliament and they had to be paid? You see, so there are small things that you can do. The records are there, and it's not difficult to be able to establish exactly what is going on. And you have got this debate on odious debt and stuff like that. So we should be able to invoke this article 226 clause 5, after you have been able to establish what is missing or what we feel is not there, to get these leaders to come and tell us, Mr. President, you are in charge, what happened? Maybe are we reading these things in the wrong way? So those small things will be there. But ultimately, there's also the way forward, which is more important. What are the policies that we need to put in place to create wealth, to create new wealth? Looking in the past is not enough. The primary thing that must be done for now is, first of all, to draw a line and say, going forward, you mess up, you get fixed. Corruption stops being the most rewarding enterprise in the Republic of Kenya. If you touch public assets, you get fixed. And that will happen if the occupant of State House has no room for corruption or illicit wealth in his heart. Because then that way the law will go down to every corner of the country and people will know that you mess up, you're going to be fixed. But if you are a State House and they are using your juniors to go and steal money for you or do things and that for you, you'll find that it becomes extremely difficult for corruption to be fought or theft of public funds to be fought. Going so, we will use the Constitution and the existing laws to fix, but you also need to come up with the new laws. Like in one of my policies is that Article 225, Clause 1, which says that Parliament shall establish an act of, shall establish the national treasury by an act of Parliament, must be implemented. We must create the national treasury as a separate, distinct institute from the political class. It must not be part of the Ministry of Finance. The Minister for Finance should not be the boss of the treasury. The PS Finance should not be the deputy boss of the treasury. The treasury must be independent and autonomous. Once money has been collected or loans have been borrowed and they go there, Parliament must authorize their use, must authorize their use through an appropriation act, and the control of budget must supervise their use, the use of those funds, and the Auditor General must give us a report that those funds have been used lawfully and effectively. That we shall be running a country. If the president becomes broke somewhere along the way during a mid-month, he must wait for his check at the end of the month. If he's broke mid-month, he should call Mumia and say, Mumia, how are you today? Can you give me something small? Not to call the PS treasury and be given money. When the president travels around the country, he must not exude soft power that is toxic, that has destroyed parliament, whereby budgeting in parliament is useless. What matters is your friendship to the president, because he can come to your area, come to Busia, and the people of Busia say, we need this to be done. And the president will say, okay, Mr. PS, can you allocate so much? Mr. CS Treasurer, allocate so much to that project so that it works. He's saying that that thing that he's saying is not in the budget, it has not been approved anywhere, but because he controls the purse, he can, development becomes a favor. So then acquiring the president's friendship becomes a very important thing. So you as an MP, if you stand out and speak against the president, your area gets punished. But if we had the treasury properly done and the budget is processed in the proper way, and the budget is then implemented by the treasurer and the control of budget and the auditor general, then you'll find that the allure of political power, the political power begins losing its allure as the most important thing to get. The state sees as being one thing that we should fight tooth and nail over to control, because controlling the state means you can get favors or you can punish other people. So for me, that would be an issue that I would point out as a policy area that will be extremely important, that must happen in the first days of any serious president who wants to see this country go the correct way. We must come back and create those institutions. We must restore the budget as the policy document of government, so that if I want to see the policy of government in terms of education, I should look at the budget. If I want to see the budget, the policy of the government in terms of health, I should look at the budget. Note that as it's happening today, we have got a budget passed by Parliament, which is just for PR, and then there is that budget that is implemented by the Treasury, which comes out piecemeal every month in what they call the statement of actual revenue and net expenditure that is published every month. When you look at that, what the Treasury has spent money on, it has absolutely no relationship with what Parliament passed. So the budget Parliament passed is just like a PR thing, a religious ritual. It has got really no substance in real life in terms of practical what you can do practically. So we need to restore those kind of structures so that this country can be run scientifically with a balance sheet, with targets and goals, and clearly cut out activities driven not by politicians, but by the civil service and the experts we have. Let the politicians drive the policy, but the implementation, and even the policy should be informed by a clear position on issues. We don't want to find ourselves in the situation where we are today, that everything is depending on the president's whims. It's like the president is the Kitabi Akidas, which is guiding the life of the republic. The president is just an employee. He earns a salary. He should just do his work as the chief executive. We go back to the question of education. The other day, 2 days ago, I think the High Court Justice Chacha Mwita struck out the new funding model that made absolutely no sense to anybody. You can't bring introducing tests among students. Students are students. And they should be free to be facilitated to learn. And today, if you have got proper physical discipline, we saw it when President Quebec was there, a bit of it. He was able to unlock some money to go to education. And we taxpayer began funding aspects of basic education. I'm sure that with the proper financial management, physical discipline, we can fund education fully for basic education because the Constitution says it's a right. If it's a right to be enjoyed by the youth, the duty bearer is the state. What will the state do to ensure that the youth enjoy that right? It's not a favor the state is doing. So we cannot be charging people school fees, uniforms, and all these things. We should just be punishing parents who are not bringing their kids to school to be educated. That's where we should be. And that can be done even to the first degree. There's no reason why we can't do it, given the amount of money we are losing to sleaze. So the other thing that was the campaign strategy, maybe I may not be able to discuss it well right now. It's something under development, but the issue is, one, we want to make sure that people are registered as voters. The young people get registration as voters. Those old people who have not been registered also get registered as voters. Two, we want to ensure that, under that voters means getting ID cards and stuff like that. We also need to fight this thing of saying that an ID card is going to cost 1,000 shillings. It's a duty that the state has. To give somebody an identity is a duty that the state has. It's not a favor. It's not something to be sold to the citizen. It's a duty that we provided from the general taxes. We need to get that going. So our broad strategy is to make sure that we get people prepared to participate in the elections by registering to vote and then getting candidates. And we hope that we shall get candidates in every ward. We have got, I think, 1,450 wards in Kenya. We should get candidates in every ward. We should get candidates who think alike in the 290 constituencies. We should get candidates for the 47 women reps, for the 47 senators. We should get candidates for the 47 governors. We should get a candidate for president, which I've offered myself to be at this moment. So we are praying that we shall be able to organize that way and make the battleground be the ward. We want to fight, we want to make the war to them in every ward. So we shall need an army of volunteers, people volunteering in their wards to get the message out that we need to change this country. We need to get Kenya to go back to be a republic, a government of law, where public office is not used for selfish purposes, but public office and the government is run for the benefit of the common good. We must come up and create a sovereign wealth fund. We must begin saving so that some 20 years down the line, Kenya should become a net lender, investing in AAA securities and not a beggar every day. We must do all those things. We must work out and come out with things like we are in a mineral-rich area. There's no reason why the mineral exchange should be in Dubai and not in Nairobi. In fact, this country was designed to have a mineral exchange in Nairobi. Those people who know that space between Kenyari, the reinsurance plaza, that thing that's being used as a parking and sometimes is used as for clothes. Not where the kids do skating, not that one, but the opposite side. The opposite, direct opposite Kencom, that space between Kencom and the Supreme Court that is adjacent Kenyari. That was supposed to be an exchange, a mineral exchange program for Kenya. What happened to it? Where did the money go? Why is it now in Dubai and not in Nairobi? So these are the kind of things we need to come back and look at and say that we need to fix this country. So when you go to the question of the debt burden, we must begin by having balanced budgets. We are coming up with all these funny, very expensive budgets because it is through construction of all this infrastructure that we can steal. So we must balance our budgets and say, what is it we need to do with our budgets? How can we live within our means? Then we must audit the debt, separate the sovereign debt, which was borrowed according to the laws of Kenya and was used according to the laws of Kenya for the benefit of Kenyans, from that debt which was borrowed against the law or was used against the law and did not benefit Kenyans. That is a regime debt. It's not a sovereign debt. And when we get that regime debt, we must apportion blame. Was it what did the lender do to exercise their duty of care towards Kenyans? Or were they colluding in enabling the regime to steal from Kenyans? A lot of IMF loans are being pumped into Kenya today. When you go to the Appropriation Act, they are nowhere. Parliament has not approved them. Whether the executives get the capacity to borrow these loans and spend them on projects that don't exist in their budget. These are the issues we need to look at and ask ourselves what is happening and what needs to be done. And if we establish that our debt is an odious debt, we must call the lender and the borrower, the regime that borrowed and the lender that lent. We must sit around on a round table and say, how is this debt going to be paid? Is it an obligation on the sovereign? Or is it not an obligation? Or if it's an obligation on the sovereign has to pay, what happens to the regime owners who borrowed that debt? So those are the kind of things that we are going to look at, and those are some policy areas that we shall look at. So my ideology basically is to run the government for the common good, not for my own selfish purposes and the selfish purposes of my relatives and supporters. So the movement behind me, to begin with, I think it's all people of goodwill. And there are many. Then the good laws, beginning with the constitution that we have. And the ordinary people, I saw people the other day printing T-shirts and posters that I'm a poor man, I'll vote for Omtatah after I had been dismissed as too poor to offer myself for leadership. So that's the movement behind me is, I think, the ordinary people who have hit rock bottom and are saying things cannot continue being the same, and this country must change for the better. And so there are many other things that we can discuss, but most important, in my campaign strategy, I want to disseminate information. I want to carry out political education. I want to be able to show people how abuse of power has got us where we are. So we are going to develop videos. We are going to get educators, and we are going to go down to the ward and engage at the ward level with the armies of volunteers to get the message out, so that Kenyans can come out to liberate themselves. And for those who work with me know that every day I keep on reminding them, I am not the Messiah. There will never be a Messiah here. All of us are in this to sink or to swim together. And we must swim together. And those of us who may be chosen as captains of the team are just captains, are not indispensable. And we should have many people who can take over leadership and move it. So the important thing is to develop an ideological and policy framework and then look for drivers. We don't want to have drivers and then look for vehicles like it has been happening. And we must realize that Kenya is one big prison right now. And the way we are having is, we are prisoners who want to have a jailbreak. The jail nearly had a jailbreak, but you saw what has happened. The wardens have forgotten their war about who is the chief warden. They are circling their wagons and saying the most important thing is for the prison not to be breached. The prison must remain intact. We cannot afford to give the country to the likes of Omtatah, who don't belong to our class. So they are regrouping, and more of them are going to regroup, and you'll see them stand out and try to make sure that the prison remains intact. But I think in terms of numbers, in terms of the weapons we have, they cannot keep this prison any longer unless we choose to be complicit. If we refuse to be prisoners, the prison will go. And emancipation, not liberation, emancipation, total restoration of the people will happen. For those who want to use a biblical analogy of going to Canaan, we are no longer looking for Joshua. We must get Nehemiah. We must get people go back to rebuild the temple because we had our freedom. We have our national anthem. We must go back to the basics and say, what do we need to do to get to the destination that is clearly spelled out in our national anthem? So we are no longer we are not in Egypt. We are in Babylon. We are in Babylon because we have messed with our liberty and we have been taken captive because of these messes we have done. So we need to go back out of Babylon. And the leadership we need is the leadership of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah was a very clear professional. So we need our professionals to lead the charge. We will also need to see that our professional organized societies do what is necessary. We have had in Uganda, the Law Society of Uganda has struck a judge of the role of advocates because he was a corrupt judge. They did not wait for law enforcement. They did that. I would love to see ISPAC strike out accountants who do false accounts. I would like to see the Law Society strike out lawyers who write for fake contracts. I would like the Engineers Association strike out engineers who validate fake buildings, who validate fake roads, and who do all those kind of things. And that way, we restore these professions, then the politicians play a very insignificant role. And anybody can be president of Kenya and the country will still function. So we must work towards that. And that's why there is no Messiah. All of us have a duty to play. And the dictatorship we must get is a dictatorship of the law. If we get a dictatorship of the law, this country will move forward, where everybody is subject to the law. If you mess, it doesn't matter whether you are president or whoever you are, the full force of the law will meet you. And that way we'll have a country that you can be proud of, a country that can compete with any, a country that will get out of the debt trap, get out of the poverty cycles, and a country that will now have wealthy and well-informed citizens who are living modern lives, not a country where people are still fighting with jiggers in their legs when others are taking title deeds en masse. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator. That was answered a lot of the questions that had been raised. But I'm going to push you on 2 points, and then I'm going to hand over to General China, and then as you think through these points. The first is that the laws of the land are written by the powerful for the sake of the powerful. That is true, under the capitalist paradigm of existence. And so if we have a dictatorship of the law, how do we then ensure that the law is not just further imposing the will of the powerful over the weak, as has happened? And the second is that you answered the question of ideology, but I think you could be a bit more specific, because I think we'd also want to understand, both for the sake of those who want to vote for you and for the sake of those who want to join your campaign, either aspiring as MCAs or as MPs or otherwise, what sort of ideological framework would be guiding the people you choose? Because they cannot just be anybody, and it cannot just be, there has to be an ideological framework that is guiding the sort of agenda that those people are going to be advancing even at those levels. But as you think about that, let's have General China come in with a submission. Keep it at 3 minutes so that we can keep moving. Thank you so much.
Mamka, maybe before General China takes it up, the senator is ready to respond. So,
okay.
General China, just hold up for a bit.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, the Constitution, as I said, was a ceasefire document. And that's the supreme law. If you look at the Constitution, there's got a Bill of Rights. One of the problems we had with the Kenyan state was that there was no Bill of Rights that was properly articulated. There was something I think Article 80 or something, Section 8 or something, but it was not as elaborate as what we have now. And there was a change from the last Constitution. Sovereign power was vested in the president, and we had what we used to call the pleasure doctrine. Public servants worked at the pleasure of the president. In this Constitution, we have got that the people are sovereign, not the president. The president is an employee of the people. And if you go to Article 236, it protects public workers. You cannot just fire somebody from the public office without due process of the law. So the Constitution as we have it underpins the rights of the weak as well as protect the rights of the powerful. When it talks about take property rights in Article 40, it talks about you cannot deprive somebody of property arbitrarily. Everybody has got the right to their property. But Section Article 6, it says nobody has a right to property that was illegally acquired. So that's the power of this new Constitution that it gives us. I agree some statutes may be undermining those positions, and we shall deal with those statutes and get them out. But the primary law of this land is a progressive law that, if implemented, it has got a lot of checks and controls to allow even the weakest to thrive. And it puts the obligation on the state to care for the weak. It's not a socialist constitution, but it has a lot of socialist overtones that are powerfully embedded to contain any attempts to move forward. So for me, in terms of a broad ideology, I feel that in a polity, political action must override market forces. Right now in the US, you see the war that's going on with the TikTok. You see the government has taken a position on TikTok. The main thing is that they may be framing it as a security and whatever. The main thing is that they want to control that money. They want to control that space. So even in the US, which we look up as there may be a passion of democracy, in quotes, political action still overrides market forces. You always see the Federal Reserve tinkering with the interest rates, political action. But here in our country today, the market rides roughshod over the state. If you look at all these funny things, the Pieros, the Adanis, all these funny things you see, is that the political action has been totally captured by the market forces, so that even the people we call leaders are captains of this market. They are not really leaders in the sense of leaders that are running a country. So I would see that a dictatorship of the law, whereby the law applies to everybody, and it's a rule of law, not a rule by law, but a rule of law, where from the president to anybody in the public service is subject to the law, where the citizen is subject to the law. Once the law is the primary force, we are going to sober up and we are going to run this country in a proper way. So in terms of whether it's a capitalist state or a socialist state that I believe at. I believe in a developmental state at this stage. I want to look at what has happened in the Asian tigers, how they used their parastatals to move out of poverty by giving their parastatals to the best people they are. Today, you look at our parastatals, they are run by who is who in terms of relationship to the powers, to those who are holding power. It's not their competence that puts them in charge of this parastatal. It is their subservience to those who are, or their close relationship, those who are in power, that puts them in these boards or makes them CEOs of these engines of the development of the state. If that is done for me, I would want to go the developmental way, where we have got a caring state that uses political power to organize itself, to create, to allow enterprise to thrive, to allow the market forces to run, but they don't run wild. They run within various controls, and also market forces that do not undermine our capacity to produce and to industrialize. We must come up with laws that allow us to protect our industry and to allow us to industrialize and to modernize our economy. We must look at banking. We cannot have Shylocks pretending to be banks. The money in the banks is Kenyan money. That money should be affordable to Kenyans to borrow and invest and grow wealth. We must come up with new investment vehicles for ordinary people so that people don't have to invest their money in Ponzi schemes. We must give people a chance, a way to grow their wealth. So those are many things that need to be looked at, and I'm sure that unlocking the professional expertise that we have in this country, we'll be able to come up with the systems that will work, because somebody said there are so many research papers, there are so many reports of committees and what have you, which are lying idle because they threaten the powers that be. There's something I've talked about, the UN, the 1959 UN Protocol on Motor Vehicles, which Kenya has refused to sign for all these years because of the catch that the second-hand vehicle dealers and second-hand spare part dealers have over the motor vehicle industry. We have got the technology to be able to produce genuine parts for Toyota, for Nissan, for whoever, but our parts cannot be done because we have refused to sign on a simple protocol that would allow proper inspection of our production laboratories and stuff like that. So those kind of things need to be taken out of the way to allow for industry to thrive. So I will be for the primacy of political action over market forces, so that market forces cannot come and even hijack our laws. You see, like these things we are dealing with, something like what we are dealing with, the Shia or the Adani thing. Unless you go back to the Finance Act of 2017, which introduced Section 114A into the Public Finance Management Act, so that a procuring entity can just go to the Treasury and talk to the Minister of Finance and say, we don't want to procure this thing according to the law, allow us to procure it the way we want. And the Minister just said, go ahead. Well, unless we seal those loopholes, we are not going anywhere. Unless we go into the Public Finance Management Act and defeat what the market did when it introduced Section 57C and D, that then undermines Article 206 that says all money that's collected by government through taxes or loans or grants must be put in the finance, it must go to the consolidated fund or to a fund established by an act of parliament. Now, that amendment of the Public Finance Management Act allowed the government to borrow money and bank it offshore, to borrow money and say that they are paying for goods offshore. Now, that one has resulted in the astronomical growth in our foreign debt with no corresponding growth in investments, because a lot of the money being borrowed now, the Eurobonds and what have you, don't come into this country. They remain offshore. You find now, if you look at our budget, the big financing given by our development partners has now shifted from money being brought into our economy to be appropriated by Parliament. They are what we call A in A, appropriation in aid. So we want to build a road between Nairobi to dual the Nairobi-Mombasa highway. The Americans will say we shall dual it, but it shall be an A and A loan. What we should do, you will see a road delivered, and we shall tell you how much it costs, and you'll pay that. But all the material will come from America. The workers will come from America. All those things will come from the US. All you'll get your road, but you don't control the cost at which it is built. You don't control who builds it. Your raw materials are not used. So that kind of thing is getting us poorer and poorer. So even if we are not, if it's not being stolen, it's not a good way of using money. So a big part of our loans now are A in A. Even the ADB, the bank, the African Development Bank, is giving loans that are A in A. You wonder how does a bank then come out to give loans to be A and A? Then you go back and say, oh, this bank is owned by foreign governments. And these foreign governments want their workers, they want to give us an advance so that we buy from them. So they're saying that their money, if it's going to be given to Kenya, then you have to come like as an A in A, which then says it was from Japan, and therefore only Japanese companies can work here. But they don't even the money doesn't come to Kenya. The money is paid in Japan, and then the Japanese come to do their work here. Then we end up just as base standards. Our engineers have nothing to do. We end up with a big loan. Look at the SGR. Money that was built to build SGR was Kenyan money. We are still paying a loan. We have paid close to 1 trillion shillings. We are still owing billions of shillings. And then you wonder, what is all this? So we need to come and plug those holes that are resulting in the market taking over the state. That's why I'm saying the primacy of political action over market forces must be restored, so that if market forces are coming in, they're coming in to benefit the people, not to destroy the state and undermine its capacity to provide goods and services. You who are in health, I was talking about universal healthcare earlier on. You cannot run universal healthcare on the basis of private hospitals. If you do that, they will bankrupt the treasury. You can only run universal healthcare by fixing the public health sector. Fix the hospitals, get the doctors working, stock the medicines, let people walk in and be treated, and they're being treated at cost. Then those who want to go to private hospitals must justify why they're using private hospitals for the state to pay them there in those private hospitals. But what is being given in the public hospitals must be above, must compete with the private hospitals. Today, the hospitals, public hospitals have failed. How do you run a universal healthcare? Then you come in and you are saying that universal healthcare has to be funded on premiums. Look at the UK, which has been running universal healthcare all this time. Do they fund it through premiums? No. Main taxes. Look at Thailand, which has recently developed one of the the best universal healthcare systems in the world. It's a third world country like Kenya, so forgive me for using the word. So it's a developing country. But they take a percentage of VAT to finance health. Kenya signed the Abuja Protocol, where it says that 15% of the budget should go to healthcare. We are spending close to 6% only. Then you are come up with this shift, the share where you're saying that you are going to tax people 2% of their gross income, or whatever other calculations will come in, 2.75% to finance universal healthcare run on private hospitals. You are just looting people. So we must go to the basics, understand these concepts, and say political action will take primary place. Even the tablets that are in hospitals will go back and brand them the way they used to brand them when I was a kid. I swallowed Panadols or aspirins those days, which were branded GOK. The syrup bottles were GOK. The gloves were GOK. You could not take government stores from the government pharmacy and put them in the private pharmacy. They are branded. But today, the market came in and said, don't brand, just free them. So that government stores now go to our board KEMSA buys, they distribute them, but they end up in private pharmacies. So those small interventions of just like branding government stores will be a major insurance against theft. When we were going to school, we used to get provision in schools. Our parents never bought books. Our parents never bought geometrical sets or those things. There was a school equipment program, and they were branded GOK. You could not get a geometrical set from a school and go and sell it in a shop. It can't work. They were branded, they were protected. When we were growing up, we used to see government caterpillars building roads. The Ministry of Works used to be all over, building roads and doing whatever. It was dismantled by market forces. They said, give us Kenya Roads Board, give us Kera, give us Kura, give us Kena to process tenders, so that now all roads are done through tenders. The government has no capacity to build a road on its own. It is tenders, 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 tenders. So we are building roads at commercial rates. We can't build roads at the rate of what you call it. We can't build roads at production rates. And our engineers are not being hired because the private sector economizes on hiring. And then we are even importing roads now. The Chinese are exporting roads to Kenya. Our engineers are idle. Kenya, Kura, Kenya Roads Board, between them, they don't even own a wheelbarrow. So that dismantling of the state by market forces must be reversed. We must restore the primacy of political action. The state must be a supplier of goods and services. It must produce. Even in the US, the state builds big highways, the state does it. They don't just contract everything to private sector. So the private sector has taken over the state, it's running the state, it has put its workers in government, in parliament, wherever it is doing everything it does. So those would be among the ideological positions I'd be taking. But globally, I would look at it as building a developmental state in the models of the Asian tigers, where then you get development and you get things going. For those who might forgive me, I might say that in my church, they say that the new name of peace is development. And that was an encyclical that was given by the Pope in 1969. He said that if you want peace in the world, develop the people. So we must develop the people. People are not meant to live in squalor. People are not meant to live like animals to be exploited. So let us bring development to the people through a developmental state. And for me, that will work wonders. Primacy of political action over market forces. I'm not saying we eliminate the market. No, it has an important role to play, but it must play in the manner that it helps build the state, not to undermine the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator. And indeed, the indignity of poverty is one of the greatest wars that was to be fought at our independence, and it is a shame that 70 years later, we're still fighting poverty. So I will hand over to General China to give us a quick submission, and then we will start admitting you, those who have requested to speak, and we'll request you to just speak for 3 minutes, and so that we can hand over, and we're already at 10 p.m., so we don't keep people too much longer. General China, go ahead, please. Okay, if General China is not with us, I have admitted Francis. Are you able to speak, Dr. Francis?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for taking your time and talking with us. But I just wanted to have a comment about the SHIF and the public hospitals, because the way the packages of the SHIF are designed, it will push people or make them switch to public hospitals, because going to private hospitals, they'll have to pay a lot or pay more to top on this. So this will help people or push people to go to public hospitals. So public hospitals will get more funds to be able to improve the quality of care they have, because financing a public hospital is not that easy. You're saying that you want to support the public hospitals, give them medicine, give them doctors, give them whatever, but how will you finance this if you don't have finances, if you don't have taxes? So it's just the way I'm finding people comment on the SHIF. I find it really not good to involve it in political problems or political debates, because you need to involve healthcare experts and financing experts to comment on the SHIF. I think it's good as a start, because NHIF killed a lot of people. It was really limited, but people didn't feel it because they paid much less than they pay in the HIF. It's a good as a start. As a surgeon, I find it will help many people. It needs a lot of adjustments, but financing a healthcare system or a universal healthcare system is not that easy. That was my comment. Like,
Yes.
I hope you could involve someone who will work more on it. I'll find it more respectful to say that you'll involve a committee to work on the SHIF to improve it, because the NHIF was not sustainable. It collapsed. It failed a lot of people, and those who are in hospitals or the consultants, they know this. I know many people on Twitter, the young doctors, they don't know how things were, but really NHIF failed a lot of people. And if you are looking to high standard medicine or quality of care, you need to finance it. And if you
Well,
compare it with other
we
countries,
get your contribution, and the senator has a response for you. So just listen to what he says, and then
okay,
we
thank
can
you.
all make sense of it all.
Yes, thank you for that input. First of all, as you know, I'm litigating the share issue in terms of procurement. We are going to spend 104 billion shillings procuring, if at all, platforms, nothing of substance software. And this, if you look at the whole contract, it is first of all, it is based on Article 114, Section 114 of the Public Finance Management Act, and then of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, which I've told you was smuggled into the law to facilitate theft or procurement that doesn't follow proper procedures. So the money, the 104 billion that is being put there, in the guise that this so-called Safaricom consortium will come in, invest 104 billion, and after 10 years it will take out 104 billion, doesn't make sense. You cannot put in 104 billion and take out 104 billion. So the issue is this: if you want to run the shift properly, then we should allow the health data agency, which is established under the Health Data Act, to roll out the ERP that will coordinate the hospitals, the procurement, the data of patients and whatever, and also retain the data, medical data of patients within the polity. Then secondly, it should not be funded from premiums. It should be funded from direct taxes. If it is universal, it means it's covering everybody. And if it's covering everybody, it's just like a road. We finance it from the main taxes, revamp the hospitals, finance it from the main taxes, let our public hospitals be as good as any, not premiums. NHIF was run on premiums, and NHIF failed largely because of management. It was looted badly. There was no discipline, and it was looted both by hospitals, private hospitals which raised fictitious and inflated bills, and by workers who are there, they abused it. So the whole thing comes down, we have to come back to fiscal discipline. And even when you say we are going to put 15% of the budget into financing universal healthcare so that we cover everybody, even those who can't pay, it means that we need, first of all, to restore the various disciplines. Like I was talking about branding medical government stores. It's a major area of theft, whereby you will go to a government hospital, has just received supplies, and this is from experience from my own county. You find there's nothing in the shelves. You check the register of patients, it has not gone into patients, but you go across there is a pharmacy run by an official who works in the hospital, which is fully stocked. And there's no way of telling whether those things that are there are his private property or he has stolen them from where he works. So we need to structure those kind of things. So the beef we have with the chief and the Shah and whatever is that, and they have rightly said, the kind of money it's paying has been lowered a lot because a lot of the money is not going towards treatment of the patients. A lot of the money is designed to be taken away by the so-called software providers. Over a 10-year period, beginning February this year, next year, in February, we are going to begin, from February next year, we are going to begin paying 500,000 shillings per month to the Safaricom consortium. When in their contract, they said that they need 2 years to set up their program, and then they can run over. So you know they signed the contract on 9th of August. On 1st of October, they said they were transferring people. To what were they transferring people onto? And if you look at all the contract, they are not providing anything that will help the medical sector. They are simply saying we are going to provide a platform for this, a platform for registering patients, a platform for monitoring drugs, a platform for doing this, a platform for doing that. In essence, they're supplying nothing at a cost of 104 billion Kenya shillings. If 104 Kenya billion shillings was put into revamping the medical system today, and the health data authority agency is allowed to do the software that is required to run the systems, we are going to do this software at the market rate using government experts, and that will run. Remember when they first tried this thing, the Ministry of Health technicians intervened and they were able to reduce that thing to from 111 billion to a figure of about 48 billion. And they even said that figure was high, and they wondered why the government itself was not doing it, because the backbone, the ICT government has laid a backbone across the country, which even Safaricom uses. So why should Safaricom tap into government backbone and resell it to us at exorbitant prices? This is what we are saying, that the market forces have distorted the state. The backbone running across Kenya was built by the ICT ministry. It is carrying all these things that we are talking about. Fellows just come in, characters come in, and purport that they are going to do something. They knock out the government agency that's supposed to do these things. It comes in, it's going to handle medical data. And you know how critical medical data is? Being given to third parties, whom the government does not control, whom the government has not vetted, and those third parties are also again subcontracting to other darker forces. So what happens in the health data of Kenyans? You know how valuable health data is for manipulating markets, for manipulating whatever. So these are the things we are saying, that the share may be a good idea that you want to do universal health care, but the way it is being implemented is not going to give us universal health care because it's being funded by premiums. 2, already thieves have taken over, and are going to capture that money and utilize it. That's the whole thing we are fighting. And we're saying that if you want to do universal health care, let us look at what others have done. What the share is going to end up doing in this country is to do what is happening in America, where you want people to be insured for them to be treated, where people can die in the front of a hospital because they don't have an insurance cover. What we want to do is to do what happens in the UK, which we have had here before, until the structural adjustment programs came in. Then they began this thing of cost sharing, and eventually you take over all the costs. Then they removed the branded supplies, and our health sector collapsed. So those are the things we are saying we need to look at and make sure we work. So when we criticize the share, there's much more to it that's not even concerning health. Safaricom is not a health provider. So when we're dealing with Safaricom in share, we're not dealing with the questions of health. We're dealing with the questions of protecting public assets from thieves who are masquerading through Safaricom as solution providers. We even know that Safaricom does telephony. It's not a solution provider. No, there's no bank in Kenya today that Safaricom runs its networks for banking and whatever, these ERP networks. The ERP networks have experts who do it. We have expertise in Kenya. You go to the contract, Somebody doing very basic work, project administrator, 5 million shillings. Somebody from Dubai being paid 5 million shillings a month. Being paid 4 million shillings. The lowest pay for one guy is about 2 million shillings. And somebody looked at it, and as an IT expert said, by the way, this one is simply keeping a flash disk. He's being paid 2 million shillings. So the idea that we have the state has to be looted from our needs is what we must fight. So the she is good, but the way it's being implemented is wrong. There was no reason why they to shut up the NHIF, people who had contracts on NHIF, and force them on this system, and people have died because they could not get cover. Much as the NHIF was being abused, it was providing some service. Why didn't we have the neat transition that is in the law that required a transition over 1 year? We decided to do a transition in 2 months from something on to nothing. So those are the complaints we are having, and some of the things I'm saying is as a result of talking to very serious experts in the field. And one fellow who does a lot of research, I don't talk just off the cuff. And chair and chief, for me, the way it's being implemented cannot grant us universal health care at all. NHIF was a mess, we agree, but you don't replace one mess with a worse mess. You fix the mess.
All right, thank you very much, Senator. So I will invite Duncan Onyango to make a submission. 3 minutes, please.
Hello, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Thank you very much to our senior comrade, Senator Okiya Omtatah, Mudira, and Mamka, and all the people who have spoken. I think the issues have been addressed very clearly, and I came in a little late because of some activities that I was carrying out on the ground, just for the same initiative. And I came in also at a time when I had people saying or calling for Senator that we want to see you on the ground, we want to see you everywhere, we want to see you everywhere. And that is when I placed the request of the mic, just to let you know that there are a number of volunteers who are already working in the background and even on the ground to lay strategy and to prepare the ground for the rolling out of all these things that we are talking about. And I am glad, even with the kind of response that we receive on the ground. Today, I was actually meeting a team of volunteers in Kajiado County. And the venue of our meeting was in Kiserian. And I was impressed by one person that I had not even invited directly, but was invited indirectly through another friend who is not even in the country. He is in Germany. And he placed a call to him and told him, hey, there is an important consultative meeting on Senator Okiya Omtatah's presidential exploratory team, and you should be able to make it there. And this guy came all the way from Namanga to Kiserian. That is about 150 kilometers away, 3-hour journey, voluntarily. Nobody paid him, nobody facilitated him, but he came all the way and caught up with us at the meeting just to be able to hear what we're talking about. So I think it is a time, we have a rare opportunity this time for us Kenyans, ordinary Kenyans like me and you, to ask ourselves, what is it that we can do to be able to support our senior comrade Okiya Omtatah, who has actually accepted our call and our challenge to be able to lead us in a movement that promises to bring change, driven and guided by the people. And I am overwhelmed by the kind of reception that we are receiving on the ground. And young people, initially we thought it was only a movement for the young people, but today I had wazees in my meeting and volunteering to carry forward the message. And at the tail end of our meeting, one prominent politician in Kajiado came in. I won't mention names. And he was surprised to find us a big group of young people. So he called us on the side and asked us what we were doing. And we briefed him. So initially he was very skeptical. He kept telling us, oh, you know, we have been talking about change since 1982, but the more we talk about change, the more things remain the same. Even people who had been advocating for change, people are giving up. We don't. Are you really sure that we can realize change in this country? But we engaged for a few minutes, and at long last, we are glad that he gave us this blessing and tell us, I don't want to discourage you. You guys are doing a good job. Maybe with the energy, the fresh energy that the younger generation is breathing into the movement, we can ultimately be able to realize real change. So we are running this initiative at a time when most Kenyans have given up. A majority of Kenyans don't think it is possible for us actually to do these things that we're talking about. And I want to call upon you and me that this initiative is not for Senator Okiya Omtatah himself. And I'm glad he responded to that matter of the messianic expectations that many Kenyans have of our politicians. And as a person who works closely with him, I want to confirm that he has actually sat us down and told us we need to build a movement that even if, God forbid, should I drop dead today, we can have maybe Comrade Muthiora Carriera to carry us still to the promised land. Or if he is incapacitated or anything happens that he cannot drive the vehicle, then we can pick on Comrade Mamka or somebody else to be able to drive the vehicle. Just like in a football team where there are competent substitutes that should one player fall off the scene, then another player would kick it off and the game does not come to an end. And some of those things have encouraged us. Senators sat us down and told us, Duncan and your people, if you guys are planning to steal, or if you're planning to steal public resources, then you'd better not come close to me to work with me, because you are going to be a bad example. We are going to use you to set an example to the rest, because it won't matter whether you are my friend or you are an important member of my team or you are my relative. If you are caught stealing public resources, you will have to go. The law will catch up with you. And I think some of those things have really inspired us to do the kind of activities that we are doing to ensure that this movement goes along. So I want to encourage us, members. I know Kenyans have a tendency, and we have seen it. Well, the moment Senator Okiya Omtatah announced his presidential committee, and it has received both support and even, opposition in equal measure. And at some point, we even ask ourselves, then what do we want people to do? I think we need more people who think like the senator to come forward. And if they have interest in this same journey, let them declare. And when the time comes, I think it is upon us as Kenyans to be able to sit together and see how we are going to run this movement, rather than sitting down and castigating everyone who tends to make a genuine effort to help us advance this movement forward. So thank you very much for the insights that we have shared. Senator, we are fully behind you, and we hope and pray that God will give you greater wisdom to be able to do much more than you have done on street activism and even in the judicial corridors through judicial activism, fighting for the people of Kenya, so that we can together as a movement
Thank you,
reclaim
Daktari. I'm
our
sorry.
republic and keep it. Thank you.
Asante, sorry. Thank you so much for your submission, but I think we have to keep moving. So thank you very much. Let's go to Farah Omar Abdi.
Thank you, Mamka. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Okay. Mine is very short, and I wouldn't even like to talk to the senator. I'd like to talk to the 570 of us who are here. And very simply, you cannot delegate your patriotism. Unaona vile unaambiaga mtu niangalie hiyo duka nakuja. Your responsibilities to this country cannot, hawezi ukaambia mtu niangalie nitakuja. That's a lie. The national anthem literally says tuungane mikono. How is it an issue for us, for anybody, to overlook their personal interests, to overlook their tribe, and look at things from a nationalistic perspective? Na nataka kila mmoja wenu aelewe, you're not being asked to move the mountains. You're just being asked to run your part of the relay. Wewe simama na haki and do your part. That's all that is being required of you. There are people who are carrying larger burdens than most of us. For instance, the senator who wants to vie, and that's a much larger burden than you being asked to vote for the right person. So the truth of the matter is, until hile siku tutaamua kupenda nchi yetu in a manner that makes each and every one of us proud to be Kenyan, sio mambo tunalalamika sha sijui nini. You must have the capacity for all of this to coexist and happen within you as it is simultaneously happening within the country, because hii nchi ni yako na si kubwa kukuliko. The Quran, God says in mamka kidogo, God says in the Quran, la yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha, that he does not burden a soul beyond that which it can bear. This oppression and this regime and all of that which we are going through, you must understand that it is your responsibility to disturb an oppressive regime. Lazima wakose amani kwa sababu pia wewe umekosa amani. The truth is, if we do not change as a people, there is no change that is ever going to come, because Omtatah is not a messiah, nor is anybody else going to come from heaven. So let us just very simply look at things nationalistically. Kwa sababu we were doing some calculations with Kathomi the other day. We would only need 1,300 shillings from each person ndo tujenge JKIA. Ukiambiwa 78 billion, it's a lot of money, but ukiambiwa 1,300 kwa miezi sita, it's very easy, and it's actually your responsibility. So let us take pride in being a Kenyan. Haijalishi kama wewe ni Mturkana, Msomali, Mborana, Njebs, it doesn't matter. We were born within these boundaries for a reason. So the moment we decide as a people, mimi najua mimi ni Msomali, but hii Usomali haitufaidishi kama nchi, wacha tuiangalie ni nini ambayo, because it's the same people who oppress your tribes who come up and oppress the nation. So tafadhalini, just come out and play your part and understand that you cannot delegate your patriotism. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Farah. That was that call to action. I hope it landed with everybody with us tonight. So before we come to Rotich, who we are looking forward to hearing from, let's have Swes Chow jump in. Swes, are you with us? It looks like she's not with us. Then let's have Rotich jump in, please. Robert Rotich. Are you there? Okay. Looks.
Seems like he has a problem with his mic. I see Felix has his hand up. Felix, if you can hear us, you have the mic. Please carry on.
Thank you very much. I can hear you. I hope, can someone confirm if you can hear me?
Yes, Felix, you're loud and clear.
Sure. Thank you very much. I've heard, I've been in the platform and I've heard a number of things, and I'm very grateful. I've heard a number of professors and the rest giving nice speeches. I'll just give the layman perspective because I'm one of the laymen. So to me, I think I support Okiya's, of course, coming out first, and also the things that he's been doing, because he's stand for us, and in fact, it's the leadership that I can say we need. Basically, whenever I've been privileged to go out of the country, the first thing I look in the country is how people drive. I always take it upon me, like when I'm moving from one point to the other, I just see how people drive and I compare it with with my country. And one thing I've learned about that is, if you want to see whether a country is somehow developed or not, see as how people drive there. So again, one thing that I would urge, even for if at all the president, our new president might come in, is we need mentality change among ourselves. I think we have been having this issue of utadu what. It moves from the beginning to the end, and that's why I'm very proud when I hear he's saying he will ensure that the law is followed, because it is all in us. Everyone at their own rights. So I will be like, everyone wants a favor. Everyone wants to do the things the way they should not be done. It has become our norm. So I think the first thing that we need to change is either we need to follow the law, and that's the difference. Even when you look at other developed countries, people are following the law. That's very simple things that just if you are seen overlapping, people are like, where is this person from? People will look at you very different, and it's something that we need to instill just directly from us. And I think I'm also very grateful that we are coming up and now saying we need to change our country. We cannot have the country that we are having and still live as things are the same way, and we cannot do that if we are not, if we want to leave the same politicians the way they have. Yeah, because now they have known what to do to us. What they know is when it comes to the elections, they will always tell us how our tribes are. They will put us into our tribes, and then after we vote, the following day, they go with their interest and they leave us around. So we need to have the real change that we want, and to me, it needs to start with us. And even when we give the senator that opportunity, if we don't change our mentality on how we see as things, we need to follow the rule ourselves. We need to ensure that things are in order. We change our mentality. Those will
Yes,
be my
thank you
remarks.
thank you so much, Felix. We have heard you, and we trust that a change in leadership will translate into a cultural and structural change as well. So let's have Tony Sisule jump in. Tony, are you here?
Hello.
Sorry, just before you
Hello.
come in, I think Rotich is back with us. Rotich, are you here?
Okay, should I hold on?
Yes, do hold on for a moment, Tony.
Okay, thank you.
Rotich, are you here? Okay, then go, Tony.
Okay, thank you very much, and a wonderful opportunity to speak to all of you. I just wanted to make a very short point, an argument, and sort of a call to action. I know that Okiya Omtatah is not the typical politician. I think a poor comparison I would make between Okiya and other politicians in Kenya is that he's really an activist first and a politician second. I don't know whether I'm right, because we got to know him before he joined politics. I think
Well,
politics.
maybe you could correct that and say an active citizen, as we all should be.
Yes, yes, yeah, I agree. So he's an active citizen first and a politician second. I think politics for him is just an extension of his active citizenship. So I am hoping that he keeps that up, because for me, the most important thing I would hope to hear from Okiya and the team is very radical change. I don't think Kenya is going to change with the piecemeal, window dressing. I think, for example, healthcare, one of the most basic things, both in our constitution, in international conventions, and just in a fact of life, that if you can't access good healthcare, however rich or poor you are, when you are sick, you basically need just a good doctor and medicine and treatment. But we don't have that in Kenya now. And I think for me, the most radical thing I would expect, for example, is to go back to the 1960s in Kenya. So instead of even looking at the NHS in the UK, which for me is a better way to deliver healthcare than the US system. I'm calling you from New Jersey right now. And I know in the US, basically, if you don't have health insurance, and the richer you are, the better the health insurance you can afford, because premiums are very expensive. You are not going to get good healthcare. So the richer you are, the better the healthcare in the US. But in the UK, because they basically just tax you every time you work, every month, they deduct a certain amount of money from every worker, and it goes to the NHS, and that funds healthcare for everybody. It's more equitable So whether you are rich or poor, in the UK, you get basically the same standard of care. Yes, there could be some difficulties with things like long queues for surgery, etc., but it's more equitable. But in Kenya, we used to have that in the 60s. Then we basically destroyed it, as Senator Okiya said. We destroyed it and tried to go the American way. And I think we are now even worse than the US. Because in Kenya, I think the problem now is, even if you are insured, the quality of care really is not there. Because our doctors, for example, first are not dedicated to any particular service. So you'll find a doctor who works for government and is running a private clinic right next to the hospital. So, or they work in the county as a chief officer for health, and they run a pharmacy across the road, so that the stores that Senator Okiya was mentioning end up moving from government to his private facility, basically theft. So our system is really corrupted. So I would want to see a radical solution, for example, to say that we are going to go back to the system we had in the 60s, and there would be no way a doctor can work in a government hospital and also run a private clinic. You choose. Even if we allow private healthcare, we should not have officers of government running private business that competes with the service that they're supposed to provide to the public. So thank you very much. And I'm very excited with the ideas I'm hearing from you guys, and keep it up.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you. And it looks like healthcare is definitely one of the lightning rod issues that Senator, you will need to consider when putting together your manifesto and the messaging. So let's go to Swes Chow. If you're here, please jump in. Okay, seems like she's not here. So then let's go to Ocharo Jackton.
Thanks so much, Mamka. How are you? I was here before, but I got into another meeting. I'm very sorry. I just wanted to weigh in a few issues. The first one is just to start with what Tony has just completed with. When you are paying doctors 700,000 per month, doctors who have 5 years experience, because it has to start with maybe, like for intern, you are paying them 300,000. 5-year experience, you pay them 500,000. 10 years experience, you pay them 900,000. And then you put strict policies for doctors not to be in a position to run private entities. It is durable. That is something that is very doable. It can work very well. But if you are paying doctors 40,000, you pay them 70,000, pay them 100,000, definitely that will take shape very faster. They will open clinics, they will open pharmacy, and nothing you can do about it, because you are actually employing people who every month, every beginning of the month get hungry. So they have to do everything possible. And because you've created a system that is full of corruption from the top to the bottom, it will be very easy for doctors to do the same. That salary that MCAs who have not gone to school are earning actually should be able to be entry salaries for doctors who have just come. That 300 or 400,000 is the least that a doctor, MBCHB, should be paid in Kenya here, just like it is in Namibia. And it should be like that. There is no need of paying members of MCAs 300,000, 200,000. Some of them only have IDs, they've not gone to school, but we have qualified people. So we really frustrate them along the way. So I hope that as President Okiya is coming on board, these are issues that will be weighed very well to benefit the public and also to benefit the people who are offering services direct to the public, and put policies that can severely sabotage and clean out any form of corruption. Then, as I'm coming to the second point that I wanted, that I was just answering Tony. The second point is, you know why this leaderless stuff is something that is 50-50. We say in clinical chem, it is aqueous. You don't know whether you should join a party or not. look at the way young people are torn in between. They don't know, should we join them or should we remain here? Before 1990, Raila Odinga and some other activists who then were activists, Akina Miguna, Akina James Orengo, they were real activists who were fighting seriously for change during those times. But immediately these people gotten into power. Even this Ruto we have today, you could see in 2005 when they joined hands with the Raila and the rest to form ODM towards 2007. You would see someone somehow making sense and understand where Kenya should be going to. But today, look at what we have. Look at the shell we have. Look at the corruption we have. Confusion is here. And we are looking for a leader who, because the trust level for Kenyans when it comes to the people every single electioneering period, we put to serve us, they change colors all of a sudden. We are looking for a leader who is actually trustable, and not just trustable before election, but also making trust be something that can still accommodate even when he's in power. That's the kind of a leader we are looking for.
Great. Thank you so
Just-
much, so much, Jackton. I think you have gone just slightly over your time, just so we allow others to speak, but your points are very well taken. Tusa, are you with us today? Tusa? All right. It looks like we do not have Tusa. Shall we go to Stephen Combo? Stephen Combo?
Well, Mamka,
Yeah.
I see we have Magak as well, still hanging in there. But then as we wait for Magak and even Veram, there are words that were said today by someone that's supposed to be the leader of this nation, and that is our cows must be vaccinated. He did say that today. He said some other despicable things in the past. And in fact, there's a survey that was conducted recently that showed that less than 1% of Kenyans still trust William Ruto. Less than 1%. Now, you recall at the height of the Gen Z uprising, only a paltry 19% were opposed to the clarion call that Ruto must go. So if you combine all this information, it would be easy for us to arrive at a response to the question today, and that is, what are the limits of leaderlessness in a movement such as the Gen Z uprising? Now, as we do that, I can see Veram is ready to speak. Veram, I hope you are listening. So please take your 3 minutes, land your point, and then we'll go to Magak. Veram, we can't hear you. Magak, if you're ready, you can have the mic as Veram sorts out the technical issue he's having. Meanwhile, Kiritu, we would like you to prepare. You have a submission to make. Maganga, you have that final landing to do, so please be close by. Magak, if you're ready, you have the mic.
All right, if Magak is not there, can we hear him?
Well, I can't hear Magak,
Okay.
but I see Ajoga is in there. Ajoga?
Ajoga just spoke.
Oh, we were with Ajoga, yes. So you carry on. Let me find out what the issue is with Magak. Mamka.
Okay, great. Let's have Unruly Comrades speak, and then after that you can be followed by Kiritu and Maganga.
Okay, I see Magak just raised his hand. Magak, I hope you're for real. You have 2 minutes, and then we'll have James and Veram in that order, and then Kiritu, Maganga, mtaingia mtupe machache tukikaribia kufunga. Magak, you have the mic now. Comrade Magak, if you're not able to make your submission, I will go back to Veram, who I can see has been raising his hand. Veram, this is your last chance. Please, for tonight, if you do not want to wait until the next time we are having this conversation, please carry on. You have the mic. James, upo na kuona, ni vema kama uko tayari. Wapo watu hapa wamekongamana na wana mengi ya kusema. Kwa hiyo kama utachukua dakika zako 3, hebu tusemezane tafadhali. James. Okay, Mamka, we are back to you.
All right, so it looks like...
Just carry on as I sort out the list of the requests. Now, for all those who have had an opportunity to speak, please, you can drop and then we can add on others who have been waiting to speak. Mamka?
Yes, so I think James is speaking. James, are you with us?
Yeah.
Go on, 2 minutes.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I know a lot has been spoken today. Don't have much to add, but I also want to insist on that which you have been speaking about. We need our leader, Okiya Omtatah, to continue in mobilizing on the ground root, in the ground level, so ifikie wananchi wa chini, ndio tuweze kupata hiyo mwamko mpya. Najua sasa kunao wanahisi hajaweza kuingia kwenye ground, lakini kama sisi wananchi wenye tunamuunga mkono, tunaendelea kumpigia kampeni, kufunza watu katika huko vijijini na mjini. So tungemuomba zaidi aendelee kuhimiza wananchi katika ground level, ndio watu waweze kupata information na hata watu waweze kuelimika katika haya masuala ya wananchi. Yangu ni hayo, na pia ningependa kuwaunga mkono kila mmoja wenu ambao ameweza kuongea leo na kusema ni asante, na tuzidi kabisa kuunga mkono na tuweze kutengeneza one platform yenye ambayo pia itasimamia kila mtu, isiwe ya kusimamia mtu mmoja. Ndio niposa iwe mimi ama mtu yeyote yule ambaye itafika mahali ataenda kinyume na principles zetu, tusikue disorganized, tubaki kama hiyo platform. Si kama venye tunaona kuna wale waliingia katika huu muungano wa Gen Z, but saa hizi unaona wengine wamekwepa, wamehamia katika the corrupt regime. So tunaomba tukuwe na one organization yenye itaweza kusaidia kushikana, itakuwa na principles, itakuwa na umbrella yenye itaweza kushika principles, kama vile USA kuna Democrats na Republicans. So tutengeneze umbrella yenye itasimamia principles, ndio niposa tuweze kusimama. Bure hivyo tukiendelea na leaderless tutapotea mahali.
Asante sana, James. That is a very correct submission. We do need an umbrella movement to choose our leaders. So I see Vikmas is with us. Are you able to speak now, Vikmas?
Yes.
2 minutes, please. Thanks.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we can hear you. 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
All I'm saying that this is a good initiative. Our movement has become stronger, although we are having some external forces that are trying to divide us. But we must all know that nothing comes easy. Hii biashara ya kukomboa nchi haijai kuwa rahisi. So let's just keep the ante up, alafu tujiorganize. Unajua the government inatubit not because they outnumber us ama ati wako na akili mingi kutushinda. It's only that they have outorganized us. Hao wako more organized than us. Ndio maana they look like they have an upper hand. They can control the narrative. But once we just organize ourselves, kila mtu achukue role yenye amepatiwa, aichukulie vizuri, I think everything will just go on fine. Alafu hii nchi kuikomboa ni kitu inawezekana, though I'm hearing some youths wengine wana give up, but let's keep the hope and continue doing what we must do to take back our country from the thugs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vikmas. And thank you for that point that advances the point that Comrade Muthiora made earlier, that when it comes to the information war, the government has lost. There is no trust. So therefore then, at this time, it is up to us to create the narrative and to advance a narrative that is pro-people and a narrative that gets us the kind of leadership we want. Thank you, Vikmas. So let me... Muthiora,
Mamka,
yes.
just before you go to the next speaker, who I'm glad is eager to take this conversation forward, I can see we have the very gracious honor to have Professor Kivuda Kibwana in our midst. I hope he's going to be able to accept our invitation to speak, even if it's just for 2 minutes. Thank you very much, Prof. We laud you for the good work you did for the people of Kenya when you served in different capacities, including your last posting as the governor for Makueni. Kindly accept the mic when we pass it over to you. Mamka, you can carry on.
Great, thank you so much. So are we ready to go with the governor?
Not yet.
Okay, so
let him just prepare.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
In that case, we do need to wrap up because it is 10 minutes to 11 p.m. and this is a festive season. I'm sure people want to spend time with their families. So let us have Kiritu and Maganga offer their final submissions, and then we will go back to the governor.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Mamka. I'd like to thank all who've spoken today regarding the topic of discussion. I think this has been a very comprehensive discussion, and I think that all of us are on the same page as regards the need for organizing, the need to be organized, and the realization that the most potent weapon that the enemy has is that they are more organized than we are at this point, and that therefore it's important for us to be organized in order to change the system, in order to achieve any meaningful change. I think that has been in order, And what I can say is that all of us, please let us join organizations, let us support efforts that are geared towards making our work more and more organized, because it is only in this that we shall be able to achieve any meaningful change, as we have agreed in today's discussion. I think that the future is bright, and I think that surely we shall be able to liberate our country through our efforts. And of course, most importantly, that we remember that all sovereign power belongs to the people, and that really it is the people who have the power. And therefore, that should be our guiding star, and it should give us the belief that if we rise up together, there is nothing that can stop us in our quest for freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maganga. Thank you for that rallying call. Kiritu, are you still with us? Do you want to give us a closing submission? Okay, so Kiritu may not be with us. So is the governor, Muthiora, shall I come to you to see whether the governor is ready?
Well, Mamka, actually, it's an honor that today the Kenyans who joined into this conversation have had an opportunity to do that which we do here almost every day, because the senator is a workaholic. He's always at work. Whenever I have sought him, he's been there. So he works till those very, very ungodly hours, as people may want to call them. He's still here with us, like he's been all week. Like you saw before, he's got information. He's full of substance, and that's because he digs in to obtain information so he can further the causes. Like you had, he's about development. And actually, the one thing that got me to believe more in his leadership is he's inspired by great people like Maraga. And if you go to some of the tweets he did recently, he has a post about what Maraga said during the cancellation of the 2017 presidential elections, and that is the greatness of a nation lies in its fidelity to the constitution, adherence to the rule of law, and of course, obedience to God. He's here with us and he will give us closing remarks, and then you will close, Mamka. So, the senator.
I don't have much to say. It's a battle that's on the hands of each one of us with equal measure. And it's a chance for us to stand forward. It calls for conviction, not cash. So those who call me who say that we don't have cash have missed the point. It's the conviction in us that will make us walk on our feet and traverse this country and get voters out to vote these people out of office. It is not going to be a question of cash. And there will be, if we succeed, and we are going to succeed, and let me say, when we succeed, there will have to be radical change in this country in terms of the way things are done. We have to call people back to order so that we can together, beginning with the highest office in the land, work for the common good. Those who want to make money make money should avoid public office, because public office will be largely for the salary you are entitled to, and to deliver service, and to walk away with a legacy at the end of the day. It will not be an opportunity for you to steal from the public, be it in politics, be it in the civil service. So it's my great honor that today I met you, and I hope we have more meetings. And as it is said, when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. We are those spider webs. We are united by our common destiny, the desire to live in a modern state. It's a destiny we have. It is well spelled out in the national anthem. We work towards that. We have got tools, beginning with the Constitution, which anchors our laws. We have our human resources. We have our natural resources. Nothing can stop us from achieving the destination we are supposed to, from arriving at the destination we are supposed to arrive at. And so, personally, I promise that if I'm given the chance, I'll not change. When I'm going to the Senate, people are saying we are going to change, we are going to do what, who is going to fight for us, who that. I went to the Senate, I'm a lone voice there, I don't belong to either side. I decided not to join Azumio. I decided not to join Kenya Kwanza when I was running for elections. The people of Busia gave me a chance. When I go to parliament, I resisted all temptation to be bought off by the president's side, the way they bought off the opposition. And basically now, strictly speaking, in the entire parliament, I could be the only opposition voice. And I've done that because my cause is driven by convictions, not cash. I've never fallen to be a slave of money. I like money, I make clean money, but I remain a master of the money. I'm not a slave of money, I don't worship money. And I cannot do anything for the sake of money unless I'm doing a legitimate task for which I'm reimbursed or paid. So let nobody think that they will see me change. If it was for money, I would stick on my seat in Busia. Right now, if I wanted to go to the governor of Busia, it's for me, basically I walk in the park because the pressure on me to go for that seat is very high. Defending my senatorial seat is also a walk in the park. But I've decided to leave that comfort zone and take on this Herculean task because of my convictions that the cat has to be bailed. And I've offered myself to bail the cat. As a captain of a team that's out to destroy, to make sure that the cat is contained. If you have to go by the folklore of the mice and the cat. So for me, it's a promise I make. I cannot betray. And those who cannot betray, and those who remember very well, when President Ruto was being sworn in, I expressed my dissatisfaction with the fact that he put the Constitution down and he raised the sword. And you have seen the consequences. The sword is a small and almost insignificant aspect of the Constitution. It's not even mentioned. It's only implied when you go to Article 238 on national security and so forth. So for him to have put down the Constitution and gone for a footnote in the Constitution was a very alarming moment for me. And I saw him as a slow motion train wreck. But it has even come faster than I expected, that a train wreck has occurred. The country is in a mess. And it involves each one of us to come and help us redeem ourselves. And I think it's also just in order that I should not be the last person to speak, because somebody senior than I am is on the platform, Professor Kivuta Kibwana, and I think I would let him close the session with his remarks. He's my senior in all ways. He's a man I admire, I respect. And so it would have been improper for me to speak last. It's only proper that Professor Kivuta Kibwana speaks last. So I hand over the mic to the organizer, to my fellow moderators, to invite Professor Kivuta Kibwana.
Professor Kivuta Kibwana needs no introduction. His work speaks for himself. He has a stellar record, and I will not take any more of your time, dear compatriots. Prof, I'm sure you can hear us. You have the mic.
Thank you very much, Okiya, Muthiora, Mamka, all the very eminent people in this conversation, very scintillating conversation. And thank you, Okiya, for the honor as a late entrant to, say something, and even after you. Just let me say that historically, I have followed you and I have seen your consistency in terms of at great cost, fighting for the rights of people. People remember your photograph chained at the police headquarters, just like when Joya was being beaten at the National Assembly. Those are fond memories that Kenyans have for you. And therefore, when one speaks in your space, they know that they are speaking in a space which is legit and for leadership that can be trusted. Let me just say something very little then about the limits of leaderlessness. I think when the Gen Zs started their uprising, their movement, they preferred to be leaderless because it was going to help them, hopefully, evade official scrutiny or government scrutiny, police scrutiny, and therefore be able to prosecute what they wanted for considerably long time before one could understand the mechanics of their movement. But even as time progressed, it was clear that leadership was emerging in terms of how duties were divided, how duties were executed. And so, although the mantra was leaderless, of course, partyless, and so on and so forth, but leadership did begin to emerge organically. And even the system itself was like abducting, killing, and so on, when now they were able to see who was consistent, what were those leaders who were emerging. Therefore, logically, I think it is true that there are limits of leaderlessness. And that is why I believe what Okiya and those that he works with are trying to do is to look for all those progressive forces, all those who can come together in one basket, like the symbolism he talked about of webs, who can come together and then be able to form what Kenyans will say that this is the solution that we have been waiting for. And so as we go into next year, it is our hope that this will come to fruition as early as is possible. And then change makers, people who have historically been consistent, fought for change at great cost, like Okiya, can then take the country to the next level. And so let me applaud Okiya, the colleagues that work with him, other colleagues in other spaces who are also trying to organize for change, but to say that 2025 is the year of all these people who want better for Kenya, now working as one group under dedicated, trusted leadership, so that we can make the changes that our country requires. And I like the point Okiya made that if these people come together and Kenyans now see that this is really a different group which wants different politics, which has got, a people's manifesto, which has got good organization, then Kenyans are likely, like 2002, to say that this is the time for the change. And so let me not speak more than that. I await 2025 so that we can, work together. I am a teacher of law now at Daystar University, but I am always interested in whatever it is that I can contribute with young people, in many other spaces when I talk and so on, to really like what I did when I was a young person during the NCC days and civil society, and even recently in Makueni, because our country, our people are crying for change. So let me say, I wish you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, but a 2025 year of hard work. Because truth be said, the way in which Ruto is, trying to organize is just thinking that if he brings all these people together, if he has the money from the state, if he has the state itself, if he has some international people and so on, is thinking that is formidable. But people who come together the way in which Okiya is saying should happen, then the people, you can't defeat an idea whose time has come, and are people who are determined to free themselves. I yield, and good night, and God bless.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Professor Kibwana, for that excellent summation that has captured the spirit of the conversation we have had tonight, that we have made great gains on the streets. We have mobilized constituencies and demographics that had not been engaged in politics before. And this is the time to consolidate those gains and to bring people together behind a progressive umbrella that can drive the change that we want. I also want to thank very much everybody who has spoken tonight, my co-host Muthiora, who has been excellent, Maganga, who made great submissions as well, and Kiritu and the other speakers. And obviously, I want to thank the Senator for creating this space for us to speak with him, for giving us a full 4 hours at this time of the night and at this time of the year. And the audience, you have been excellent. We still have 500 of you online. Meaning that this conversation has resonated with you. And so we look forward to speaking with you again. This is the first of very many conversations ahead of us. So we encourage you to follow A Certain Amount of Madness podcast so that you can keep up with the next episode as it comes. And I have the pleasure of announcing that the next episode will actually be a long form conversation between the Senator and myself, where I'll get to dig in a bit more on some of these questions of his policy proposition, of his movement building agenda. And I hope that all of you get to listen to it when it is out in the new year. Thank you very much and have a wonderful night and an incredible festive season. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you all.
Christmas.